You've found yourself at the junction where worlds meet. Politics.
Civility? How about honesty in this country, folks?
Entertainment.
I don't like entertainment.
And a whole bunch of other stuff.
It's about having a healthy body image. You have a very unhealthy body. You should have a horrible body image.
Not a big home improvement market in Detroit.
We are definitely going to get letters.
You're listening to Talk Radio's Strangest Animal.
You're a strange animal, that's what I know.
You're getting louder with Crowder.
But you're a strange animal, I got to...
Allah. It's the third show in June, which marks Louder with Crowder's official Cultural Appropriation Month. Join us each week as we travel the globe, appreciating and illuminating you on all the great cultures this world has to offer. Up this week, the ancient culture of the Middle East. Allahu Akbar! Glad to be with you. That sound is the sound of the weekend. Don't
Good
speak.
weekend.
Don't speak. When you're burqa'd, you don't speak to me. I am your host, Stephen Crowder. Of course, producing with me in studio, as always, is Not Gay Jared. You can follow him on Twitter at Not Gay Jared. He is not gay. I fulfill my legal obligations. Draw your own conclusions. We good? We're fine. You can speak.
We're good.
I give you permission.
We're good.
You are good. You know, we're doing Cultural Appropriation Month. Of course, that continues this week. We did Mexico, China, now the Middle East. The reason we had to pick the Middle East is just because there's no particular standout country. So we went with a region, which I think is more fair. You know, you don't have to wear that burqa the whole night.
The burqa?
You don't have to wear it the whole night. You can take it off. I have to get rid of the beard here, because this is not going to make it possible for me to talk. So, all right, glad to be with you. We have some tremendous guests here tonight. We have Dave Rubin, who will come on the show later. We'll have a discussion about gun control. We'll have a debate about the gun control. So you look good. Your face looks good. You don't have to hide that pretty face behind a burqa. You're here in North America.
I appreciate it.
Just the way God made you. And then we are going to have Gerald Morgan, of course, in the second hour.
Great guest,
who really does know a whole lot about Islam. We'll be talking about Islam, and we will have Anni Cyrus on at the half hour here, who was a child bride in Islam and knows it pretty well. Knows the religion pretty well. Let me move my seat here because it's on my garb. I don't know how they live like this. No wonder they drowned in record numbers in the bay.
It's a real problem.
Did you know that with the burqa?
It's a real problem.
All right. I have a little bit of a new setup and some big announcements to make. I don't know why Not Gay Jared is laughing so hard. So we're glad to be with you this week. Of course, a horrible tragedy this week. All right, let's start this off. You know, it's mandatory to say thoughts and... What's that?
I'm not sure what that is. But I like the jam.
Oh, does that mean it's call to prayer?
It must be getting close.
It's call to prayer time. Which direction's Mecca?
I think it was that one over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got it? Take part in your prayer, Jared. There you go. We got it. Okay. We faced Mecca. We did our prayer. So listen, it's a terrible week. Mandatory to say thoughts and prayers. And of course that's true. And I hate the fact that we have to politicize these issues right away. I hate the fact that that happens, but it's reality. And conservatives need to accept, anyone who's anti-authoritarian needs to accept that it is reality. This happened, of course, the tragic shooting in Orlando, and before the bodies were even cold, when a man named Omar Mateen opened fire on a bunch of gays in a nightclub because they were gay and because he was Muslim and pledged his allegiance to ISIS. We are talking about gun control. That is what's happened right off the bat. And we've gotten so far left in this country. Let me give you a couple of important pieces, and let me go general for you, and then we'll come back. We'll talk specific news of the day. Sally Kohn got really mad at me. We'll talk about those tweets later. We'll rebut Samantha Bee later and Conan O'Brien. We don't want to do it right now, right off the bat. Let's give you the general idea. First, the Marleys were dead to begin with. This man went through the security checks. He wasn't on a terror list. He wasn't on a no-fly list, and he didn't use an AR-15. Wasn't on a terror list, wasn't on a no-fly list, didn't go through a loophole, and he didn't use an AR-15. That's important for people to know. Because people want to repeat it in your brain, AR-15, 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 AR-15. They want to make you scared of that rifle. Even though they've never fired it. They have no idea what a semi-automatic weapon is. They have no idea what an assault rifle is because it doesn't exist. But they want to drill this in your head. Repetition, 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 repetition of the lie. None of those things are true. Okay? I've written about it at louderwithcrowder.com. Start with that. Sally Kohn gets up and right away the left is saying Christians, including the ACLU, Christian conservatives created this environment because we don't want penises in the ladies' room. Sally Kohn talked about Christians and their anti-gay bigotry because a private bakery not wanting to bake a gay wedding cake and slaughtering 50 gays, not 49 gays in a nightclub. The comparability is striking.
It's more or less the same thing.
It's in the ballpark in the Sally Kohn brain. And so I tweeted her on Twitter saying, yeah, bakers not baking a cake versus 50 homos dead in a nightclub. I can see the similarity. Now it's Twitter. She gets off on the homos. How dare you use the word? People are more offended about an abbreviation of the medically correct term homosexual than they are the fact that Islam is killing record numbers of gays across the globe and it's happening on your own soil. The left is more offended if you say the wrong word. I don't know if queer is the right word or if it's gay half the time. There's LGBTQ. Some people tell you the Q is queer. Some people tell you that it's questioning. They're more concerned with the words. Why? Why are they more concerned with the words when 50 people are dead? I'll tell you why they're more concerned with the words, because they know they can hang you on them. They know that they can hang you on the words. If people are focusing on the words, if people are focusing on the joke, they don't actually examine the policy. They don't actually examine the heart behind the words. They don't actually have to face evil in the face. That's why people like Sally Kohn are doing it. That's why they want to make it about the AR-15. They don't want to acknowledge that we have evil amongst us. And here's the thing, conservatives. We need to be honest about this, okay? Good guy with a gun would be... No. That may not be true. Do I think good guys with guns are... Yes. Do I believe you should go buy a firearm? As a matter of fact, I think that everybody out there right now should not only buy a firearm, I want to see trending, hashtag, gift a gun. If you have any loved ones or friends who are responsible, obviously in clear medical health, who don't own a firearm, you should purchase them a firearm as a gift. Why? Because when it's shipped to them, to their local FFL dealer, they will have to go through the paperwork. Now, even if they don't fire that gun, even if they don't like it, they have to go pick it up because you filed it under their name and you've shipped it to them, right? They have to go pick it up. They will have to fill out paperwork and a background check. Here's why that's important. The easiest way to refute the propaganda that's coming out from Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, where they say you can get a machine gun without a background check. All it takes is for someone to have ever purchased a firearm once. If they've done it once, they can say, sorry, Jared, bullshit. For terrestrial, we're going to have that dump button. Bullshit. Anyone who's ever purchased a firearm knows that it is absolute, complete, patent bullshit. They've done it illegally. I don't know. I'm not talking about the Bloods or the Crips. That's why. So here's the beauty of this. The Second Amendment, fundamental gun rights are a winning issue because over 90 million Americans have guns, at least hundreds of millions of guns in the United States of America, and you want to make that more. Because every single one of them knows that it's a lie that you can get a gun without a background check, or that a background check would stop a crazy person from getting a gun. By the way, the no-fly list is a joke. And anyone who wants to use that as a litmus test for your fundamental human rights is a joke. Whether it's Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. We don't know who it is yet. Donald Trump said he wanted to talk with the NRA about not letting no-fly listers get guns. He could mean that he wants to say we shouldn't not let them get guns. He could do the double negative. I don't know. But that's a deal breaker for me. Boston Globe. Or Boston, was it Boston Globe? Boston Press? It's one of those Boston.
Boston Globe.
One of those Boston.
Boston Globe.
They want to release permit information publicly. That's setting a crime map. Here's something. The Second Amendment, we'll get into this. We'll get into the rebuttal with Samantha Bee and Conan O'Brien. The Second Amendment, when taken very literally, it's beautiful. It's like the Constitution. Sorry, it's not like it's like the Quran, the Constitution, or the Bible. The Second Amendment, when taken literally, is really clear. The right of the people, not the right of the militia, the right of the people shall not be infringed, period. Very clear. When taken contextually, the Second Amendment is even more clear. It's only for muskets, which is so funny. They go, AR-15s are a weapon of war and have no place in it. Well, what do you think the weapons of war were back then, dummy? Muskets and tanks. Not tanks, cannons. Sorry, they didn't have tanks. Cannons. Muskets and cannons.
They would have liked tanks.
They would have loved tanks. Cannons. And guess what? Founding fathers said yes to cannons. There was a letter of marque and reprisal. We've talked about that. I think it was Jefferson. Was it Madison? A letter of marque and reprisal. Madison.
Yep.
Private ship. And it wasn't written like, okay, we'll give you permission to have cannons. It was, what? Of course you can have cannons. That's why we wrote the right to bear arms and not muskets. No free man shall ever have his arms stripped. These are direct quotes. When you read more letters, when you look at the historical context, it only becomes more strong. That's the beauty of the Second Amendment. That's why Michael Woods Jr., who was on Joe Rogan, talking about how we need to rewrite the Second Amendment, agreed to come on the show. We'll talk about him later. Looked into his past, agreed to come on the show. Then changed the term, said he would only come on if people gave to a GoFundMe. Then said he wouldn't come on because the left can't defend it. It's their biggest losing issue. So the Second Amendment is really clear. I invite anybody out there who can give me a convincing argument that the Second Amendment was meant only for muskets during that period of time. Anyone, that it wouldn't apply to modern firearms. In that same breath, you'd have to make the argument that the First Amendment doesn't apply to people tweeting from their iPhone. So that. But then the question comes up, and Not Gay Jared asked me this week, is the Second Amendment, is the juice worth the squeeze? Are we at a point where the negative ramifications are so great that maybe we need to do away with it? That's what people are saying, though. That's another argument from the left. Just do away with the Second Amendment. It's not worth it anymore. The cost of freedom is too great. Good guy with a gun may not stop all of them. We need to acknowledge that. You can't contain evil. Are you doing this? Are we doing this again?
No, going to break soon.
We're going to break soon?
Yep.
Already?
Yeah.
I wasn't even finished with my rant.
Time flies when you're having a blast.
I thought we were doing another call to prayer.
I wish. Where's Mecca?
I don't know where Mecca is. We're going to break?
That way.
Well, okay. We'll see you. We have to go pray to Mecca.
Why didn't you just kill me?
An unfair death. Your punishment must be more severe.
Was it like a rolled-up newspaper?
More severe.
Torture?
Yes. But not of your body. Of your cheeses.
No.
You will watch me tear this country apart. And I will do it with hope.
But I thought hope was a good thing.
Hope will poison their souls. Hope for sardines. Hope for cheeses.
I don't see what's wrong with that hope.
They will never get sardines or cheeses. These are empty promises.
Oh, you're a monster.
And once the country has ruined itself, and all the acorns are mine, Big Squirrel will fulfill its destiny. And then, you have my permission to die.
That is so creepy. Where am I? In Hamtramck, Michigan?
I would like to say the music got better at some point. It got picked up, but...
You know, someone right now is listening.
That was our top 40 hit.
Well, everything is top. That's top 40, everything there. Every top 40 in that country, that's what it is. You want to hear the next song on that list? It's the same song.
Probably is.
And then some Muslims don't like music.
That's true.
That's the thing, too. Okay, a couple of things. Got this up on my screen from the Wall Street Journal. There were suspicions of the Orlando shooter, and actually some firearm stores, dealers, refused to sell him ammo. And you see leftists praising this. Well, that's great. Well, yeah, shouldn't private businesses have the right to refuse any service? Imagine that. I don't want to cater your wedding. Why? Is it because I'm gay? I don't like your face. I don't like your bowl cut. Leave. I would like to purchase 1,000 rounds of ammo. Okay, and your name? Omar? No. Bye. If you want to get real about the lists, you need to get real about profiling here. There's one problem, and the problem is Islam. But I'm surprised that leftists aren't talking about how, hey, it's great that private businesses have the right to make some judgment calls sometimes. Sometimes they get it wrong, but they should have the right to make safety calls, whether it's a gun or it's a cake. When it comes to the Second Amendment, I was talking about this before the break. Some people are saying, is the juice worth the squeeze? Are the effects worse? Is this the cost of freedom? We'll talk about that later with Samantha Bee. Okay, the cost of freedom. Sometimes good guys with the guns won't stop it. You have to accept that. You cannot contain evil. And sometimes this is a cost of freedom. That'll be a soundbite. Someone says the mass shooting should continue because it's the cost of freedom. Listen, violence is down. Okay? After the assault weapons ban. You remove Chicago, Baltimore gang violence, the mass shootings have not gone up. Okay? Statistically, it's not this bloodbath out there that people want. Now, this is a horrific incident. No one is belittling the incident. No one is marginalizing the incident. But you can't control evil. And the evil is Islam. The evil is not the AR-15, which wasn't used. Is the juice worth the squeeze, the Second Amendment? Well, let me tell you, what has the Second Amendment given you? Okay, the Second Amendment is, the United States, this is important to note, it is founded on violence. The United States was created very specifically through justifiable homicide. Justifiable homicide against redcoats coming from a monarchy and an evil, oppressive, corrupt government who never allowed their people to have guns. So the Second Amendment in a modern society, do you get some shootings? Yeah, but guess what? Without the Second Amendment, you would never have this modern society. It wouldn't exist. The Industrial Revolution, the technological leaps and bounds, electricity, light bulbs, all of them have come to you courtesy of the United States. Why? Because of freedom. Freedom to innovate, freedom to create. No place left the world's greatest, most oppressive superpower one century only to become the world's only superpower the next century. It's never happened before or since. Not to this level. You know what happened? You know how they did that? With firearms. With the Second Amendment. They said, we're not going to do it like them. The only way we can make this work is by being different and ensuring that all of our citizens, unlike those jackasses over there in the King's Land, can protect themselves. Guess what else the Second Amendment did? Freed the slaves. The bloodiest war in American history, right? Civil War. Never would have happened without the Second Amendment. So maybe some black Americans should be pretty grateful that the Second Amendment happened. Do you think some farmers with pitchforks are going, yep. You're going to do something with your gun? Yep. Yeah, I do. So with that, the founding of the United States, which could have never taken place without the Second Amendment, which was very clearly, again, it clearly expressed that everybody has the right to bear arms. Again, even contextually, it's more clear. Cannons, high-capacity firearms, which existed back then. Of course, we've dispelled those myths many, many times. That's the only way the United States could have ever come to be. And because of the United States, you have freedom of speech. Because of the United States, you have a modern free press. Because of the United States, you don't have slavery here in the United States. Slavery has been ended mostly throughout the modern world. It still exists in the Islamic world. Again, let's go back to that. Killing gays, they still have slaves in a lot of those countries, and of course in third world countries. Because of the United States, which could only come to be through the Second Amendment, you have the Industrial Revolution, you have the Technological Revolution. You're able to watch this freely on your computer or on your iPad. None of those things could have happened without freedom, and freedom could not have happened for the entire world without the United States and without the Second Amendment. It was pivotal. That's why it was in there as number 2. So you want to talk about culture? That culture created everything that you are using and enjoying right now. And by the way, there are plenty of other violent right to the south of us. We have Mexico. That's the cost of freedom? What's the cost of not freedom? The cost of not freedom is record rape in Sweden. The cost of not freedom, the cost of authoritarianism, of course you have historical examples like Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Pol Pot, but let's just talk today. The cost of not freedom is groping and getting your hooch grabbed by someone free of charge at a German music festival. The cost of no freedom is being put in jail for saying something unpopular or even playing, God forbid, kung fu fighting, which is labeled as hate speech. The cost of not freedom is going to prison for 2 years for using the word tranny, as could happen in Canada. That's the cost of not freedom. Oh, and by the way, they still have mass killings. Yeah, sometimes the cost of freedom is not pretty, but conservatives need to also stop lying and say, well, we can stop this with more guns. No. Do I think it will be better? Yes, because an armed society is a polite society, but you can't fix it. I'm not bringing tidings of great joy here. There is a cost to freedom. And if you look at it throughout history, it's been bloody. but everyone benefits. And so I'm a little tired of these other places with crappier, inferior cultures. A lot of these cultures, well, if you want to talk about Mexico, or if you want to talk about some places in Europe, you want to talk about places in the Middle East, these people who are piping in, talking about how we need to implement gun control. Other cultures outside of Western European or American cultures, we used to have a word for them. It was an umbrella term. Savagery. That was the term we used for other cultures because ours is better than theirs. You can send your letters to me or tweet me at @SCrowder. I'm a little tired of them telling us how we should run our culture. Well, Mexico has a violent culture. There are plenty of countries with violent cultures. Liberals aren't trying to get out. I mean, they're praising Venezuela and Chavez for crying out loud. So just accept that actually the United States does not have greater violence than the UK. Certainly not stabbings or muggings, not overall violent crime rate, but yeah, guns are used in some more crimes and it's a more effective tool. Except that maybe that's a part of our culture, which isn't inherently more violent than everyone else's, but it's a culture that allowed you to even benefit from your culture. It's the culture that allows you to even exist at this point. Yeah, I think the Second Amendment and the gun culture, freedom is worth the price. I hope I've crystallized my answer for you. Gift a gun. Hashtag gift a gun. Because anyone out there who purchases a firearm knows that what is being peddled right now is a lie. So, okay, we're going to get back with Gerald in the second hour talking about Islam more theologically. Anni Cyrus is coming up next. She was personally a child bride, personally married off, lived in Iran, and fled it. And so we're going to talk about her story personally first. Then come into the macro. We've moved past guns because you're logical people. We're going to go to the evil that is Islam. The greatest evil of our time. Worse than Nazism. They hate Jews just as much.
Hate them.
They hate them.
Can't stand them.
They hate them, absolutely, just as much. Louder with Crowder. Stay tuned. Anni Cyrus next. I can't believe he said that. Oh, there you are. You caught me on my off time. You know, you're probably watching this video cast on YouTube or Facebook, or maybe you caught the live video stream Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. I don't know, but many of you don't know you can subscribe on iTunes or SoundCloud. The audio version has exclusive commercials, sketches, and you can take it with you on the go. Plus, it's free, and I know many of you are cheap bastards, so. Always looking out for you.
Reach the wizard.
Wake up.
Reach the wizard.
Glad to come back. Glad to come back with this next guest with that fabulous bump from Pogo.
Fabulous.
If you haven't heard him, you can go download his stuff. Pogo is the name, Australian artist. Brilliant. And this next lady is brilliant. You can find all of her work at liveuptofreedom.com. Fascinating life story. Migrated to the United States, fled Islamic oppression, and I'm not going to get her first name correct, so we'll go with the Twitter handle. Kind of like Asian nail salons where all of a sudden their name is Tammy.
Yes.
So we'll go with Anni Cyrus. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, don't think it'll be your pleasure. We haven't gotten into it yet, and usually people change their opinion. So we got an email from Tony Bugle, friend of the show, said, you have to have her on, and I've actually seen your stuff around. You really specialize not only in Sharia law and how it treats women, and of course you're excoriated for some of the stuff that you talk about, but what's really important is you've had firsthand experience. For those who don't know, you were, from what I read, you were sold off as a child bride very young. And, well, you take it so I don't botch it. Why have you made this your life's mission to educate people on Islam and its relation with women?
Well, I was born and raised in the Islamic Republic of Iran with an N at the end, not a Q. It's Iran. And I basically, not only was an Islamic country, it was also a very Islamic family that I grew up in. My father was a sheikh, or better known as imam here. And my mom was a Quran teacher and a woman who would teach other women how to be a obeying good Muslim wife. Mm-hmm. So I had to face it inside and outside. Somehow some of the people get lucky inside their family, they're not too religious. But in my case, I had to deal with both. And growing up until age 15, I basically faced almost anything except death a woman can face in Sharia law. I was put in prison. I was lashed. I was sold to a marriage, and I was beat up. Obviously, that's a very normal thing that happens to a woman.
Well, hold on,
At this
but
moment-
why? Like, why did they just do it because it was Thursday, or because you were lippy? What was their justification?
Well, I do and did have a big mouth. I wasn't the type to just take it. So I would ask too many questions. I was suspended from a school for asking too many questions about Quran. My dad a couple of times punched me for asking, why do I have to cover my hair at age 7 going to school and the boys don't do it? Or I would ask, why do I have to do the prayer? Or I would ask, I would just keep asking questions, and none of them ever made sense to me. Until today, it doesn't make sense to me. However,
that
under
didn't
Sharia,
change.
it won't. There is no making sense out of Islam because there is no sense. It's just one thing, and one thing is you either obey, you end up dead. That's just the way it is.
Now, some people will say, oh, this is anecdotal. It was your personal experience. It's not necessarily representative of mainstream. In places like Iran or more moderate places, let's say, like the UAE. That's what they'll say to try and rebut this very interview. What do you say to those people?
Well, I normally say grab a Quran. If you don't have the actual whole copy, go to Quran, Quran.com. Find 4th surah named An-Nisa in Arabic or the woman in English, 176 verses. Go ahead and read the first 13 verses and you get your answer. On the first 13 verses, it will tell you Allah himself that a woman is worth half a person. It will tell you to beat your woman if she's not obeying you until she obeys. So keep beating until she comes back to obeying you. It does tell you that if you feel like you need more than one wife, you are allowed to get up to 4 permanent wives and unlimited sex slaves. Well, there you have it. It's right in your Quran.
Well, I would
It's not
say that
experience.
is an answer, but they would say that it's not a good one. Is that a fire alarm beeping that I'm hearing off in your thing? Do you have one of those? Is it a battery that's not replaced?
Oh, you can't hear that?
I can hear. Well, it's just saying it's because you're smoking. You took off the headdress and you're a good-looking lady, and it's saying, this is what happens when you're in Western society. I'm sorry, wildly inappropriate. I'm very
No,
apologetic.
it's all right. It's good.
It's
Yeah,
okay because I know you won't beat
told my
me,
husband.
and I won't beat you because I believe you catch more bees with honey, not beating the crap out of them like bearded Muslims do. So Muhammad did that. Now let me ask you this, point blank, and then we'll move on with your story. So just give me yes or no. Did Muhammad have a child bride?
Yes.
Did Muhammad beat his wife?
Yes.
Did Muhammad have sex with someone who was not his wife as a sex slave?
Yes.
Okay. I want to make sure that's clear, and because you can go to liveuptofreedom.com, and Anni Cyrus will explain it far better than I have. I've explained it on the show. I just want to make sure that people know point blank all those things are true. They can search them. So you're sold. How old were you when you were sold into being a bride?
I was about 13, 14 when I was sold.
Okay. Now, forgive me, you don't have to answer this. They argue Muhammad didn't consummate until several years after. Was that pretty much this husband was able to do whatever he wanted immediately?
Oh, Muhammad consummated the marriage at age 9. Aisha was 6 when he got her, but consummation was at age 9. I was 13, 14, way past that age, yes.
So was that incredibly scary, or was it just kind of something that you knew, so you grew up with, and so it was just sort of another day in the life?
For me, it wasn't so much scary. It pissed me off because I hated the pig, and I couldn't say no. I mean, I tried saying no. Pretty much every bone in my body has been broken at least once. I'm still dealing with some broken bones. Believe it or not, I have to do 2 surgeries because of bones he broke. But it wasn't so much of a scary no. It pissed me off.
Right.
Pretty much hated it.
Now, I'm sure that made you really mad. But does it make you even more mad that when you come out and you speak about this? Because I've seen the reactions to you that privileged leftists in the United States and California say, well, she's just angry and bitter. It's not representative of Islam. I would imagine that is probably more overall upsetting.
Oh, yes, it does really piss me off when they say, oh, you just had a couple of bad experiences. Oh, really?
Right.
I'm giving you verses from Quran, and I'm giving you hadith from Muhammad, and you're telling me these are bad experiences. Yes, it does piss me off. However, I try to control my anger.
Right. Well, that's true. Well, and now you is this effectively your life's work, educating people and lecturing?
Yes. Pretty much. That's all I do, 24/7.
And do you do a lot on college campuses? What's the reaction to that like right now? Because people have requested me be banned for making jokes about Islam, or of course, fat shaming, whatever they're triggered by today. But since that's your thing, have you had any specific reactions or been banned from campuses?
Oh, I was never allowed in. I was turned down by any college, any high school, any university I ever sent a request to have a speech.
So where do you do your speaking?
Well, pretty much all of it is through my videos. I do the videos, they get shared on social media, on YouTube. Sometimes they take them down, and we have a backup, so we put it back on. I haven't had a single chance to get anywhere as far as public speaking.
Yeah.
They just won't let me.
Well, and you know what's funny too? I think not only because people don't like what you have to say, but even if people might agree with you, and I've seen this behind the scenes, they're too afraid to take the risk with someone like you because it's a real security factor.
True.
So,
yes, they are afraid.
So, okay, so what if you have to, so let's say, assume this is a video. What is it that you want people, having lived your life, to understand about Islam? What's most important for them to get that you think people are missing?
Islam is not a religion.
Okay.
Islam is an ideology.
Yes.
That's the main thing they need to know, because as soon as we get that out of the way, the very first thing is they cannot hide behind our First Amendment anymore. So they can't have a free pass.
Okay. So you say can't hide behind the First Amendment. So obviously we're talking about no abridgment thereof as relation to religion. Obviously the press has included freedom of speech. What do you mean they can't hide behind the First Amendment? Would you shut down mosques? Do you mean no with Sharia? How far would you go?
Well, to be honest, if it's up to me, I would definitely go with ban Sharia. When you ban Sharia, they can't have mosques either, because one thing about mosque is a lot of people actually automatically assume a mosque is where they do their prayers, and no, they don't. As soon as a mosque goes up, that means that area has been conquered by Sharia law. That mosque turns into a Sharia court, meaning any person who's practicing Islam, any woman will be in danger in that area because the husband doesn't have to take actual legal steps anymore. They just go to the imam at the mosque and take whatever order they want, including beheading and a stoning.
Well, hold on a second. Are you saying all mosques function as Sharia courts?
Single mosque. Yes, the mosque is also a Sharia court.
Okay, I didn't know that, because I know there's like 80-something mosques in Sharia courts, officially in the UK. And we have plenty of mosques here in the United States. Those aren't labeled as Sharia courts. Are you saying people are wrong? That's under the radar. They're acting as courts?
Yes, pretty much that's what it is. If you grab the Al-Bukhari Hadith book, there are over 72 Hadith in there where Muhammad mentions that every imam that runs a mosque has the power to make decisions for family courts, which turns into a Sharia court.
Okay, I guess I was under the because listen, I'm very, very hard on Islam. If anyone has seen the videos that I've done, I was under the impression that maybe that dealt more like with private marital counseling or family disputes, like you might see in a Christian church, right? Couples having trouble, they go in, they see a counselor, and they try and remedy the relationship. Do you mean that, or you mean it goes further as to actually making legal decisions like divorce with legal ramifications?
Oh, yes, that's what a imam in a mosque does. Let's go back to Islamic Republic of Iran for a second. All of the judges are actual imams. In order to become a judge, you don't go and study law, you study Sharia in order to be a judge.
So all judges are imams, but does that mean that all imams are judges?
No, it depends on what level of imam they are.
Okay.
However, any imam who runs a mosque is a judge.
Okay.
In order to lead a mosque, you have to be a judge level of imam.
Okay, so
meaning you are allowed to send out fatwas.
Okay, explain what that is for people who don't know, myself included.
Oh, okay. Fatwa or fatwa, they pronounce it both ways.
Oh, I know fatwa. I know that. So, okay, but continue.
Well, the correct Arabic pronunciation of it is fatwa.
Okay.
That's how they say it. But it's basically a sentencing that is given to a Muslim who has disobeyed or walked away from Islam or, insulted Allah or Muhammad or anything that goes against Sharia law. That's the sentencing or judgment for that Muslim. It's called fatwa.
Well, because people have said they put a fatwa on me. Can't it be done for a non-Muslim for mocking Muhammad? Because that's what I was told, that I had one on me for repeatedly mocking Muhammad.
Well, you need to keep one thing in mind. In eyes of Muslims, every person that was ever born is Muhammadian or a Muslim. So you might think you're not a Muslim, but they look at you as a Muslim who walked away from Islam. Because as soon as you were born, you were Muhammadian. And that's the whole goal of Islam, to turn the planet back to its origin, which is Muhammadian.
Well, that's interesting because, of course, people would say, well, Sharia law or these, they don't affect anybody outside of the Islamic circle. They have their own sort of, think of it as traditions. But like you're saying, they see anyone who is not Muslim as actually Muslim but needs to be punished for refusing subjugation.
Yes. What is the word they use? Apostate?
Yes, apostate.
Yes. You see, a lot of people say, oh, we're infidel or proud infidel or kafir. At the end of the day, I have an actual Muslim, by meaning real Muslim, not some people who call themselves Muslims, but real Muslims, we all are apostates because we were born a Muslim, but we chose to have a different faith, so we turned our back to Islam.
Right, and of course that is punishable by death. I had a friend even from her mother from Egypt had to flee. Listen, Annie, sorry, I keep going with Annie. I know it's not the right name. We're going to have to go to a break, and I want to bring you back. LiveUpToFreedom.com. This is fascinating. And she's quite easy on the eyes, too. Thank God she made it to Western culture. Louder with Crowder. Stay tuned. We'll be back more with Anni Cyrus. And now for actual studio conversations. I know we've joked about it, but what do you think? Do you think Hillary Clinton is straight? Do you think she's...
I don't know.
She's a lesbian?
People talk about it. I don't know.
I don't know, but you don't... What do you... Like, if you... I'm not saying it's definitive either way, but do you think so? I go back... Okay, no, here. Oh, scenario. Gun to your head, your family's head.
This
okay?
escalated quickly.
Yes. No, I'm serious right now, because just... You have to give a definitive answer. So... Your family is at gunpoint. You have to bet your life and your family's lives. Has to be one or the other. Those are the stakes. You have to bet here and give an answer. Is Hillary
Yeah, she's
Clinton...
a lesbian.
This has been Actual Studio Conversations.
When it's time to party, we will party hard.
Glad to be back. LiveUpToFreedom.com. Our guest with us has taken the time educating, illuminating Anni Cyrus. You can follow her on Twitter. Thank you so much for being with us. And I appreciate your candor. I can imagine that this is tough to speak about for a lot of people. Do you just plow through it with anger?
No. I do it because I know I'm taking my revenge.
Oh, okay. So there you go. It's like a Jodie Foster film where she buys a gun and she lurks the New York subways. Mm-hmm. I dig it. I wouldn't want to cross you. Hopefully you've been happy with this interview because I get the feeling that I have like a horse head in my bed if you were mad at someone.
You are just great.
Okay.
You're fine.
Well, thank you. So you moved to well, you're in the United States now, and it seems like it's really hard. You know, you're sounding an alarm and people aren't listening. Do you feel like the tide is maybe changing a little bit, that people are becoming more comfortable with recognizing Islam for what it is? I've noticed that if I would have said these things 3 years ago, people would have screamed Islamophobic. But now even some progressives are saying, yeah, it's a problem.
Yes. However, here's the biggest problem. I think it's kind of late already. I don't mean to be the downer here or the negative girl, but I wish they would let you say it 3 years ago. The reason I say it's already late is look at Europe.
Right.
almost gone. And I don't want to sound all negative, but I don't think they can easily take it back. It's going to take a hell of a lot of work for Europe to go back to what it was. Now, we woke up in America. We started to, let things be. And if we're not talking about it, at least we're not shutting other people either. But the reason it's late is we are the last place for them to take over.
Right.
So our job is a little harder.
It is a little harder. And so I want to take you back to, we talked about this and caught a lot of flack when Dr. Ben Carson said, no, he doesn't think that a Muslim could be president of the United States. He thinks it would be a problem because the Quran is it can't really be put alongside the Constitution, that the two are unjustifiable as far as being put in the face of each other as a system of law. Yeah, irreconcilable. Sorry, I was looking for the right word, and my brain is just mush because, you put a pretty lady on screen, and then both of us are dummies. I don't know what happens. Did you hear that? And everyone said he was a racist and he was a bigot. Did you hear that and say, well, of course?
Well, I actually, when he did say that, I was one of the witnesses who went ahead and signed his letter on the article he did. I was one of the people who signed his statement as a witness.
Well, it's one of those things that seems so obvious. Like you said, we need to ban Sharia law. Well, we have constitutional law. We have laws in the United States which can't be reconciled with Sharia. So it seems like it's already banned. But if you say Sharia law needs to be banned, people go, how dare you? Well, no, it's already banned. Many of the laws individually. Well, here you can't beat your wife. Sharia law says you can beat your wife. Therefore, Sharia law is already illegal.
But no, it's not. How many cases of honor killings did we have in the United States that the person walked away?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer. I'm betting you do.
We have 4.
4? Like all or last year?
No, 4 in total since this whole mess of Sharia law started spreading in the U.S.
Okay.
We had 4 people, a father and a son, a father, a brother, and another father who actually killed the girl in name of honor killing, and they walked away free based on cultural differences.
Was that the actual legal status?
Yes.
Okay. They wouldn't say like there wasn't enough evidence to convict. They would, if you actually look at the case, it was because of the cultural differences.
Culture, yes.
Good Lord.
So you can't say Sharia is banned here. No. It might be for us, I mean, not even for me, but it isn't for, let's say, a woman who's here. I do have a lot of Muslim women who wants to leave and just have a new life here in U.S., and they are scared of it. We are actually working on a shelter for them, believe it or not. In U.S., they are afraid of leaving their husband and leaving Islam because they know if they get killed, nobody's going to do anything about it.
Right.
It's a cultural difference.
Well,
they are still having Sharia law. At the moment, it's only applying to Muslims.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And their goal is to apply it to all non-Muslims who they see as basically Muslim apostates. So we had a woman on here, we called her Q, who had that situation. She had to be anonymous. And
she's actually an American woman, too.
She's an American woman. She was an American woman who converted to Islam and left, and she basically couldn't let us know who she was, or she said they would take the kids and she'd never see them again because of the way Islamic courts would work, and there's nothing she could do about it. So not afraid of being killed, but she said, no, the law doesn't matter. With these cultures, I would never see my children again. So that is sad. Are you able to set up a shelter? Are you able to get some of these women out, or is it really hard because they've been brainwashed for so long?
Well, it isn't hard. One of the things Live Up to Freedom does, we help people outside of America. Basically, we have had cases where we rescued women from Islamic Republic of Iran with their kid, if they did have any kids, and we take them out. We smuggle them out to other countries, and they go through the proper legal steps of, asylum. They get refugee status. They go to other countries. Inside U.S., however, we are struggling because our own laws are working against us right now. Because legally, we cannot actually hide these people.
Right.
If they have kids, our law here says it's a kidnapping. So you see how it works?
Yeah.
So we don't have the right to do that. They're stopping us from we can't get the paperwork done to where we can actually rescue children and women from Sharia law, because to our law, we are basically kidnapping the kids.
Right. Wow.
So no luck here yet.
No, that's another example of sort of leftist tolerance, want to be pseudo-multiculturalism really hurting the most defenseless among us when we're supposed to be helping them. In particular, Muslim women. You know, they always trot out on Huffington Post, a woman, I'm a Muslim woman, and I love wearing the hijab. And now there are feminists for Islam all over campus. And it really is sad that it drowns out the voices of people like you and people who you are helping. Listen, we don't have on the schedule for much more today. Will you come back on the program? Because I want to get more into your personal life story next time. Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Where's the best place for people to find you before we go?
They can find us on liveuptofreedom.com. And that's the best place to find us, actually.
liveuptofreedom.com. And I bet you she's going to get some suitors saying, hey, I'm a good Western male who will treat you correctly. But she's a nice lady. Don't make passes online. It's creepy. Louder with Crowder. Stay tuned. Bill the Hopper, Hopper. 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 Bill the... Oh, shit!
Get excited. Here we go.
Glad to be back.
I was throwing dirt on you with the shovel because you were digging.
This is the second hour. I need to introduce you. I am Steven Crowder, louderwithcrowder.com. Producing with me in video studio, as always, is Not Gay Jared, who is not gay. Follow him on Twitter at NotGayJared. Draw your own conclusions. I fulfill my legal obligations. Don't speak. We're honoring the Middle East.
That's fair.
Women are not allowed to speak under Islam. As you just heard from Anni Cyrus. What's her Twitter handle?
I'll have to bring it back
Anni,
up.
ANNI underscore
so.
Cyrus.
I believe so.
I believe so. Like the name of the man who arranged the whole meeting with the warriors in the park of the gangs. Can you dig it? Yes, Miss Cyrus, we can. Well, we're going to have Gerald Morgan on in the middle of the break. We're going to actually have a firearms dealer to come on to explain, just for a segment, exactly what the process is like, what kind of a firearm this shooter used. Mm-hmm. Then we will have Dave Rubin to talk about gun control afterwards. Oh, I almost forgot. Bob Ross teaches you how to draw Muhammad.
That's an incredible get right there.
It's an incredible get. We do have some fantastic. So Bob Ross and we want you to draw along with us live. Louderwithcrowder.com.
Send us your best picks.
Send us your best Muhammad. If you've driven Muhammad, If you've written Muhammad, send us your best Muhammad. Okay.
Still doesn't make sense, but go on.
What did I say?
Written.
Written? My brain is not in highest gear right now. Okay. We should do this probably right in this segment. Yep. Okay, so let's do this. We're going back to gun control. Conan O'Brien, Samantha Bee, host of late night shows, but of course Samantha Bee got most of the credit because she has a uterus, and so we all have to act as though what she says...
And a cool leather jacket.
We all have to act as though what she says is somehow more important or more insightful. But let's start with this, and we want to go through some myths that you may have been hearing on the late night show, or just, frankly, some stupid commentary. Let's start with Conan O'Brien.
These are weapons of war, and they have no place in civilian life. I have tried to understand this issue from every side, and it all comes down to this. Nobody I know or have ever met in my entire life should have access to a weapon that can kill so many people so quickly.
And he gets that to thunderous applause.
Of course.
Couple of things. Weapons of war. So were all the weapons, even according to your own argument back then. The muskets. Those were weapons of war. Weapons of war changed, just like the ink and quill became the printing press, became your iPhone. They've always been weapons of war. They've just evolved. You don't know anyone? You've never known anyone who might have one? Okay. Check the security booth over there at the TBS studio. I've been to the NBC studios many times. They are armed to the teeth. At the very least, they have semi-automatic pistols with high capacities. I think, what are you getting out of a Glock double-stack 9mm? Is it 17?
I want to say 17 plus 1.
17 plus 1. And that's the most common, I believe.
The Glock 19.
Isn't that the most common pistol for law
most
enforcement?
popular pistol in the world. Glock 17 would be the most common now.
Okay.
Police issue.
Police. Okay.
Same gun, just a little bigger size.
A little bigger size. Still high capacity.
High capacity.
So, Conan, if you've never met anyone, I'm sure plenty of your friends do, they just don't talk to your arrogant ass. Just ask security. They have them all around you. There's a start. Okay, let's go to Samantha Bee because everyone was praising her. Let's roll the first clip.
Australia had 5 mass shootings between 1987 and 1996. Then the public decided that was no fun. Parliament passed strict gun laws, and they haven't had a mass shooting.
Okay. First off, there are more guns in Australia than ever. All right. I have this up on the screen. Gun-related homicides. There's an argument as to whether it increased or not. We wrote about this up at louderwithcrowder.com. They're wondering, well, have gun-related homicides increased? Okay. That's a debate, and some people will say they haven't increased, but it certainly hasn't curbed it dramatically. You can use the term mass shooting, but most gun homicides are not mass shootings. Here's something that is undeniable. While gun violence went down, violence of every other kind, every variety possible, in Australia went up. There you go. Just scrolling. Homicide, sexual assault, robbery, kidnapping, abduction. Look at this. Whereas in the United States, crime has gone down. In Australia, it has skyrocketed. Who'd have thought that taking away guns from the good guys could result in people being sitting ducks?
What a crazy thought.
So when they point to Australia, which, by the way, it's also very telling. When they point to Australia, a mandatory buyback is they come take your guns. That's not gun control capacity. They take your guns away. So understand that's what Samantha Bee wants to do here. Let's go to the next clip.
Australia doesn't have a Second Amendment. Love you, Madison. Congratulations on your Tony, but you really fucked us with that one. We can't constitutionally get rid of all guns, but can't we get semi-automatic assault rifles out of the hands of civilians?
A couple of things. They always use the term semi-automatic. Again, security at Samantha Bee's studio, every single firearm there is a semi-automatic. We'll bring an FFL dealer on afterward.
You just know instantly how dumb someone is.
You know instantly that this person is a dumbass. And I don't just say that flippantly, like, oh, they're stupid because they're liberal. If you use the term semi-automatic, any basic self-defense handgun is a semi-automatic. As a matter of fact, most revolvers act as a semi-automatic. Technically, they're not. They're a double action. Semi-automatic means pull a trigger, one trigger, one bullet. Now, a semi-automatic means that it automatically reloads the next bullet, the chamber, right? Racks the chamber. Revolver does the same thing. It just doesn't need to reload because the chamber switches over. But effectively, it acts as a semi-automatic. One trigger pull, one bullet. So when they say that, they're deliberately trying to mislead you. Go to the next clip.
Sam B wants to take your guns away. Yes! The ones that mow down a room full of people in seconds, yes, I do want to take those guns away. These high-capacity penis substitutes are a shitty choice for hunting and home protection, but perfect for portable mayhem.
Okay, a couple of things. I love how she uses slate right there, unironically.
Slate.
You look at her, and you look at Conan, and you look at, Seth Meyers. Slate, Salon, Mother Jones, Vox. Just so you know, when these people claim that we're just entertainers, we're not biased. Right here,
They're
the
not
sources
even
I have
trying.
up are New Yorker. What is it? New Yorker? Washington Post. These are the sources I'm going to be using for you here. Washington. She uses Slate unironically. That should be your first tip off right there. Bad for home defense, bad for hunting. Samantha Bee, when have you done either of those? The reason the AR-15, which wasn't used in this attack, by the way, is so popular is because it's very easy to learn and very easy to fire for women. Very low recoil, very accurate, very easy, very reliable. Hunting, I'm not a hunter. I've seen people hunt with it. Is it the most effective hunting rifle? Probably not. The more effective hunting rifles would mow through 50 people. That's hyperbole. At least 5 or 6 before the round even stops. The AR-15 is effectively a glorified .22 with more powder behind it, okay? It's not a big round. Why? Because the United States military, they have the M16 variant, which is an automatic, which is not legal unless you have a Class 3 license. It's very easy to shoot and keep on target because of low recoil, because it's not a super powerful round. So again, she has absolutely no idea. It's a crappy decision for home. It's a great tool for home defense. Hunting, you've never hunted. Shut up. Next clip.
It turns up at gay nightclubs. Movie theaters, an elementary school, colleges, even an office party with coworkers. It's nicknamed America's gun, and unlike handguns, it can be bought in Florida with no waiting period.
First off, that has nothing to do with anything. Many states don't have any waiting period on handguns at all. Or rifles. Again, and it's not used in most mass shootings, by the way. The AR-15 is not used in most. Rifles are used in a very small amount of homicides, certainly public mass homicides. It's almost always handguns, which are just as effective. Probably could have gone in there, 2 17-round magazines. You could have had a 25-round magazine in your handgun, replace them, would have done the exact same thing. Waiting periods. It's interesting you talk about that. We want to talk about freedom. You're a big, strong woman, right? You're fighting for feminist rights. Here's a woman who died, Carol Brown. I've got it up on my screen. You know why she died? Because she was waiting to buy a firearm to defend herself from a crazy ex-lover who got to her before the waiting period was over. Here's the deal. I may need an AR-15 because of angry Muslims don't like free speech. Mark Stein, Salman Rushdie, I'm right there on the care list next to them. She needed it because of an angry lover. Lots of people need different firearms for different reasons, and you don't know those reasons. Therefore, you don't have the right to infringe on their freedoms and their right to protect themselves. Here's something important. Many Americans live 20 minutes away from police departments in this country, okay? 20 minutes away. So you can sit in your Upper East Side or Upper West Side penthouse or your LA apartment with your doorman building and talk about, gee, how great you are, even though a woman's getting the hell raped out of her down the block by a gang who went into her house because they're 20 minutes away from a police call, but you did the tolerant thing. People die during waiting periods. Often when people are buying firearms, it's a necessity. Next clip.
So until we as a nation find the political will to reject a mass shooting per day as the price of freedom, I'm just going to pray. Are you there, God? It's me, Sam. Please bless the victims and their friends and families in their time of unspeakable pain. Give us the courage to say no more. And while you're at it, please send the NRA a plague of boils. Amen.
Okay, here let's talk about the NRA. People love to act as though they're like Bernie Sanders and the socialists, and we're the party of the people and democracy and lobbyists. Guess what? The NRA is the one organization in this country that is largely funded by small individual donations. Their biggest funder, I have it right here, $175 million of the NRA's annual budget, and it is huge. 50% of that is from contributions. 27% comes from other donors. The majority of the NRA funding comes from people who are members. Okay, so now when you were saying the NRA, you were talking about a huge portion of Americans, a huge number of people. Here's something else. Let me bring this one up for you. Interesting you bring up the NRA because you want to go to war against the people who believe in protecting their rights from elitist people like you. In many accounts, but this comes from the New Yorker. In many accounts, the power of the NRA comes down to money. Organization, here's what it says. But money is less crucial than you'd think. The NRA's lobbying budget annually is $3 million, which is about a 15th of what, say, the National Association of Realtors spends, or big unions, where the dues are mandatory. The NRA's biggest asset isn't cash, but the devotion of its members. They're politically active. They don't even have the money that big unions or big real estate or big banks or big telephone companies do, but liberals want to single them out because they are the organization, they are a lobbyist, as a voice of the people who want to keep their fundamental human rights. Keep going to war with them, Samantha Bee, you arrogant wench.
For breaking news on Louder with Crowder, I'm Perry Matheson. We take you to our on-the-field reporter, Jimmy, in Orlando, who has interviews with families of the affected victims after the horrendous tragedy. Jimmy.
Yes, Perry, I'm here with Eric, who was actually in the club. And Eric, thank you for taking the time. We know how hard this is. Is there anything you can tell us that maybe the media is not talking about that could give us some insight into the situation? Again, we're really appreciative of your time. Yeah, the guy went in there, and obviously it was a horrendous scene. He continually kept yelling Allahu Akbar, and it's a tragedy all around.
Now, Jimmy, did he just say the man was yelling Allahu Akbar?
No, Perry, that's not what he said.
It sounded pretty clearly like that's what he said.
No, Perry, he was yelling, I love my AR.
Well, there you have it. We'll keep you abreast as this story unfolds, and we gather more information. hoping to prevent a tragedy like this in the future. For Louder with Crowder, I'm Perry Matheson.
All right, glad to be back with one of our favorite guests. We've
Great
had him
guest.
on quite a bit. All the time. You know him. He needs to get a better Twitter handle, though. He is a rocket scientist, neurosurgeon. You know what else he added?
What?
Doctorate in geology.
Really?
Made billions off of fracking, and then...
Just since the last time we had him on.
Then made billions off of lobbying against fracking. So all of these things, G Morgan Jr., at G Morgan Jr. on the Twitters. Gerald Morgan, thank you for being with us, sir.
Absolutely. I think they call that playing both sides.
I think well, you're hedging your bets.
There's money to be made everywhere, my friend. Everywhere.
There is money to be made everywhere. Not so much in apologetics and theology, which is, of course, your main realm of expertise. So we wanted to have you on this week. We had Anni Cyrus, just, my God, fascinating. If you go back and listen to it, child bride, sold, just awful story.
Yeah.
But
crappy upbringing.
She was almost a little too close to the forest to see the trees. Pretty spunky. Pretty rambunctious, and she got pretty mad. So Gerald's a little more mellow. So right now, obviously, the move is to gun control. With people are saying Islam has nothing to do with it. Gerald, set us straight. Does Islam have anything to do with Islam?
Islam has everything to do with Islam. I think violence has a lot to do with Islam, and there's a lot of people out there who ask that question. Is it really Islamic thing, or is it just people that have perverted? No, it really is. Over 100 times, they're urged to be violent in the Quran and in the Hadith, which is, just think of it like a Bible commentary, except maybe with a little bit more importance to Muslims as a Hadith. And it's all
now. Do all schools of Islam use the Hadith? Have they consistently? Because some now say, well, that's not the Quran, that's Hadith.
Absolutely. So it's basically like saying there are 5 or 6 that are very well respected and kind of accepted Hadith. So you can even quote from those, even if you want to limit the pool just a little bit, just to make sure everybody's happy. And you can quote from those and be just fine. But I've got, literally right in front of me right now, I've got just list verse after surah in the Quran that talks about this. And I will concede something. Context is always very important when you're talking about either biblical verses, because we're not supposed to be snake handlers and see if we can survive a poisonous bite or something like that.
Right.
But even if you take it in context, it still encourages people to go out and commit violence, even in the historical context, not only just the verses around it, but in the historical context as well. So a lot of people will say, well, no, some of the stuff that you're talking about, jihad, is kind of an internal conflict. There's plenty of surahs that basically blow that right out of the water, because they're talking about going out and fighting. If it's internal, you don't have to go out and fight anywhere.
Let me ask you this, because I know we have a lot, and we've done videos with these verses, but the arguments that we get are, well, there's also there are plenty of verses in the Quran that tell you to love, to not harm any innocent people.
The grass, especially, which I find very comforting.
Muhammad was very concerned with. He was.
Grass.
I think he was a botanist.
Weed, though.
Yes,
ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time. Animals too. You cannot scare a cow with a knife. That's how that whole goat rumor got started.
But with an AR-15, that's totally okay. Use an AR-15 to scare the cattle.
But what do you say to people who say that? Who would say? And I know this. I think I know the answer to it. But I know there is a very specific philosophy behind it in the mainstream schools of Islam, because Muhammad did say some nice stuff too.
Absolutely. But if you are using those things to say that Islam doesn't promote violence in any way, shape, or form, you're just flat out lying. By the way, that is an acceptable thing to do to infidels. You can lie to infidels, and it's encouraged. Don't worry about it. There's also something called abrogation, so you've got in the Quran, in Surah 244 and 191 through 193, you've got certain things that are being said here. If he says something later on, say in 474, if he says something different, it actually supersedes what he said earlier. And so you can quote from the beginning, kind of in the peaceful times, is kind of what they say. In the beginning of the Quran, it's a little bit more peaceful. It's before he started doing a lot of the stuff that we talk about, where there's a lot of warfare and he's kicking people out of their own villages and slaughtering and all this kind of stuff. And they'll say, oh, no, this is the peaceful part of the Quran. And they'll just quote those passages that help their cause. They won't tell you that later on things change.
It's kind of like David Bowie. You're talking about Suffrage City, you're talking about changes, and they want to ignore everything after China Girl Or it's like, after Labyrinth crystallizes Bowie in a rough era. That happened too.
Maybe he was just unstable and he was actually transgender, just was not understood by
Don't make
society.
a Bowie joke. Don't make a Bowie joke.
No, that's a Muhammad joke. I'm talking
Muhammad.
No,
Okay, I
not
was gonna
Bowie.
say. No, you can do whatever you want with Muhammad, but Bowie, you're about to cross some lines.
Serious lines.
I'm a no, and I say that because obviously he's passed. But I'm a Bowie fan, but there was some later contributions to his catalog that just were frankly embarrassing. But so it would be like saying, okay, David Bowie said, ignore all my previous work, erase it because this is the work I need to be known for. That's the theology of Islam, right?
Muhammad was the quintessential politician. He spoke for whatever needed to be said at the time to benefit his cause. So when everything was peaceful and everything was cool, hey, be peaceful, don't hurt the grass, the cattle, everything else. But when all of a sudden he's starting to be rejected and he has to move into another part of the country, he has to go there. He starts to get a little violent. He starts to raid caravans so that he can make money, and then he starts to kick the Meccan adversaries out of their own city.
Right,
completely did it. Got rid of everybody. So it says that there's all. I mean, and you can read this. It's all throughout the internet, even in context, guys. Look at the Quran. It is not a peaceful book at all.
Well, and historical accounts of Muhammad. Atheists like to say there's more historical evidence of Muhammad than Jesus, and just because you're talking about someone more recent. But that's not to say you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are historical accounts of Muhammad, not a good guy, right? I mean, this is not just from the Quran. Historians acknowledge these things.
If you could separate some of the earlier stuff Muhammad did, reasonable guy to kind of build your stuff off of if you're trying to build a religion or trying to build some kind of a culture. Not all that bad. It's when you get kind of halfway through his life and his ministry, quote unquote, that things starts to radically change, and it just shows you the underlying character that was always there that just didn't have an outlet. He didn't have a reason to kind of bring it out when things were going well. But when rejection came, he turned into a really bad guy really fast. Not the kind of guy that you want to have as your pillar in faith, right?
Well, not the kind of guy I want to have as a pillar for the next door neighbor's faith. That's the concern.
Well, and I think that's something that people are lying to themselves about. They don't know their own religions. We've talked about this a lot, but the big thing that you need to know is that in the Bible, there are accounts of violence that happened, right? There are difficult passages within the Bible about historical events.
Sure.
In the Quran, it's left open-ended. Fighting is prescribed for you in the Quran 2:16. That's a different statement than saying David went in and destroyed the Philistines or whoever he happened to be fighting against at the time. That's a totally different statement.
Right. Well, we have to go to a break. We'll bring you on after this to be continued. Sorry, I haven't been saying much because it's very interesting. I always love hearing. And he has a soothing voice. Mm-hmm. He should be in my seat here hosting. I don't know when I'm doing this. I'm a hack. The guy's a neurosurgeon. Gerald Morgan Jr. talking more about Muhammad after this. Jihad! Jihad. Well, there you are. You're still here. You're watching this podcast on YouTube, likely. Did you miss the live stream Thursday nights at 8 p.m. on YouTube or Facebook? Either way, you can also subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud for the audio version with additional commercials and take it with you on the go. Or louderwithcrowder.com, which is mobile friendly, so you can take it with you wherever. It's pretty cool. Isn't that right, Hopper? He likes it. Okay, but you're driving later. That's enough.
Reach the wizard.
Wake up.
Reach the wizard.
Glad to be back. Joe Morgan
There's something
Jr.
creepy about you doing that. I can't put my finger on it.
We have to do a lip dub in the car when
scary.
we make our announcement. At G Morgan Jr., he was there. Hey, Gerald, I want to ask you something.
Yes.
So this Talk Islam putz has been going back and forth but won't debate. We've had a rash of people refusing to debate, and I respect Zach Ford for coming on and doing it, but we had Michael Woods Jr. said no one would debate him, and we said, you know what, we didn't even say debate. We said, well, we'll have you on and be discussion and be productive. He said, sure, and now he is pushing out this GoFundMe is the only way he'll come on. He said anytime, anywhere. D.L. Hughley moved. To be fair, I think he'll probably come back on. Talk Islam won't debate. He talks about how Muhammad said, do not harm any innocent. Okay, that, and they often use the term people of the book. So I don't want to, we can't take super long with this. People of the book, Gerald, refers to whom?
People of the book actually refers to Christians. So he's referring to Christians and essentially Jews by extension, because he was rejected by both of those communities initially. The thing you have to understand, though, is that there's a little bit of a fine line here. You either convert, you pay the tax, or you die. But in the very end, you have to convert or you die, and that's all throughout the Quran again. So there may be some verses that say, if these guys stop fighting against you, then you can leave them alone. And there are some, and they'll quote those as saying, hey, if these guys stop fighting against us, it was all defensive anyway, and that's not true.
Right.
Then we can leave them alone. But that's not true. It actually involves conversion as well, so that it's only worshiping Allah. And if you don't worship Allah, in the end, you get killed. Look at every country in the world that are dominated by Muslims. Christians can't just live there and exist. There's incredible persecution. They're treated horribly.
No, you're absolutely right. I wanted to ask that because people of the book, that is true. But like you said, you go back to abrogation. Not only that, well, it's one of those situations. We were talking with Anni Cyrus. She did enlighten us on something. She said, it's not like Christianity or Judaism or anything else where you convert to the faith. You're all seen as people born Muslim, and you're seen as an apostate, period. And that is, when you understand that that's punishable by death anywhere, that's the one thing that even most moderate Muslims, a huge portion, you're talking hundreds of millions, believe in death for apostasy. A lot of them probably don't consider everyone who's not Muslim an apostate, but that is the actual doctrine of Islam. That to me was fascinating, and I think people miss it. Again, the context, it's kind of like the Second Amendment. We were talking about this earlier. When taken literally, it's very clear. When taken contextually, it gets even more clear. I feel like it's that way with Muhammad and the Quran. You take a verse, go, that seems really violent. Well, hold on, let's look at the context. Like you said, timeline matters, abrogation matters. People of the book, that term matters. They see everyone as apostate. The more context you add, the worse it gets.
Yeah, exactly. It just gets worse and worse. There are no innocents, essentially. Innocence basically refers to people who believe in Allah the way they want them to.
Right.
Everybody else falls outside of that category, like you said, and they're apostates, and therefore they're subject to a completely different set of rules as to how you treat them. And I would rather be grass at that point, just to be frank.
Or a cow.
At that point, I'm dressing up in a grass suit and walking around.
Basically, Gerald dressed as grass as Gumby.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. That's really what it is.
I'm a grass Gumby, guys. Don't hurt me.
Well, it really is true. It's one of those things. There's so much misinformation that comes out with this. I'm amazed as to how quickly we pivoted away from Islam at all and right into gun control.
It frustrates me and you to no end. The first thing that we're having to do is to talk to people about the reason that it's a good idea that we are armed as a population.
Right.
I understand, or at least have the right to be armed. And then Rolling Stone comes out with this article, some constitutional professor saying that we should repeal the Second Amendment, that it's time not to try to fix it, just to repeal it outright.
Right.
And get rid of it, that we don't need guns. And I'm like, man, you're an idiot. First of all, the biggest problem that we face on this planet is radical Islam. And not even radical. It's Islam. The biggest problem we face.
Well, radical Islam as far as death, murder rates, terrorism, and then moderate Islam as far as abuse of human rights.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, put those things together and there really is no bigger threat to society today. And the thing that you want to talk about is a scary looking rifle. And that's the problem today.
One that wasn't even used.
Exactly.
AR-15 wasn't used. They just say AR-15 style. Granted, you can get to a technicality, but it's very clear they want
a different weapon. Can we call it what it is? It's a different weapon. It wasn't
Sig
even
Sauer was I always forget the MCX, MCR,
MXC or whatever. Yeah, something like that.
Very similar, but it's not what people would technically just say AR-15, but they want to repeat that AR-15, AR-15. I just wish they would repeat Muhammad and Islam and the verses so people could know. Yeah, all these people hear the name AR-15, they know what that is. Not a single one knows what surah is. Not a single one knows what hadith is. Not a single one knows who Aisha is. None of these people.
No.
And that is what is it's incredibly alarming, and it really is. I think there's rejection as far as political correctness, but the media will go down kicking and screaming. We just did this with Samantha Bee, Conan O'Brien. I don't know anyone who would need that kind of a gun. Well, fine, you don't. I do. You know why I do? Because of Islam. I'm on CARE's list. Mark Stein, Salman Rushdie. These people are on lists where Islamists try to kill them. They need an AR-15, and you can't account for every single reason why someone might need it. So you have to err on the side of freedom, which of course
you have to come up with the reason why you don't need it. That's how this works. That's how our system of freedoms work.
That is due process.
They haven't come up with a good one yet. So And they'll try. They definitely will. But I think one more thing to mention, too, is that when President Obama came on and started talking about the shooting, obviously, you and I, we want to have compassion for the people that have been shot. We want to care for the people
Hold on
in
one
the
second.
community.
Jared, put the camera on yourself. Stop yawning. Jared doesn't put the camera on himself one time because he's sitting here, he's putzing around, and he's yawning.
Are you yawning?
I did yawn.
He was just yawning at what you were saying,
theology.
Gerald.
Oh, there we go. Thanks.
I'm sorry.
So
Continue.
He said he refused to say the word Islamic terrorism, and people called him out for that. And he came out with something that I thought was better suited for a high school cafeteria smackdown than any press conference a president should ever give. And it was that these aren't these magic words or this magic phrase that all of a sudden allows us to fight the problem. And I'm like, you idiot. It's like a doctor walking in, seeing you have a broken arm and saying, you might have a strain. I'm gonna just give you some Tylenol and send you home. You diagnose the problem incorrectly and you can't fight the problem.
Right.
He doesn't realize we have an enemy. And until you realize you have an enemy that is actually trying to destroy you, you can't fight that.
That being said, what you've just said, and we've talked about this, is much more nuanced. I do get aggravated when you hear other conservatives out there just going, why won't he say radical Islamic terrorism? And they don't expand on it. It's like, that's not the point. The point is he won't say it. Why? Because he doesn't want to acknowledge the problem, because he wants to appease these people in our world standing as opposed to actually upholding the Constitution. But people focus so much on, say Islamic terrorism, and then if he says radical Islamic terrorism once, your argument goes out. Kind of like with the gun issue. A good guy with a gun would have stopped it. Well, maybe not. But that's not, you can't, because guess what? You're going to have a story where a good guy with a gun gets gunned down regardless, and there goes your argument. That's not the argument. And so it makes it hard for people like you and what we do try and do on the show to actually present why that matters, because you hear those sound bites all the time. Why doesn't he say radical Islamic terrorism? Well, he did. The problem is he's not really acknowledging the threat.
Right. It's that second part. It's the making sure that you diagnose the problem correctly so that you can fight it. That's why it's important. It's not the verbiage or anything else.
It's probably a couple guys who've hijacked the faith and they're going nuts. Not an ideological problem that's worldwide.
Right.
Despite, even if you don't have ISIS next to your little desk.
Right.
Deal.
That took a while for you to look for that word.
I still know the word. What is the word? I lost the word. Desk.
The
You do your
name and the plate, the guys.
So, okay. How do you fix it? Can you? With the Islam issue? Because that's what people say. How do you deal with radical? How do you fix it?
I think the first step is to admit you have a problem. I mean, just in any situation that you're in, you have to realize, okay, there's something going on here. It's not just random violence. It's not driven by the economics of the region. It's not driven by global warming, which some people say. Not driven by lack of resources, lack of water, though it is hot and there is little water over there. But it is actually an ideology that wants to see us destroyed. And it's a significant number of people. A very large portion of this population on the planet wants this country and others like us to go away.
Right.
And they're actively trying to make that happen. Okay. First thing, just admit that. Admit that, and then we can start taking the next steps and going, okay, well, what is next? How do we start to change maybe our perception to some of these people? Not doing things that maybe say I'm sorry for certain things that have happened in the past. That's not what I'm talking about. How can we do things that show them they won't get away with this here?
Right.
How can we do things that keep people that have these kinds of ties from being able to get weapons in the first place like this?
Are you asking questions or are you going to answer them?
Well, I'm not saying that I have all the answers for the next steps, but we can't even go to these next steps. We can't even ask these questions, then have great people, great minds come together and say,
here's
yes,
the
this
truth.
is the way forward.
If now it is possible for Islam to evolve. You've seen that with some religions, even if they're getting away from the true religion, right? You have some American Muslims who have rejected that. That is true. Is it true Islam? You can argue probably not. And of course, compared with everyone in the Islamic world, no, not really. But there needs to be a civil war in Islam. And it can't be done without all these people who claim they are the silent majority. They need to stand up. And I'm not just saying, again, it's very simplified when people say, well, why don't you condemn the terrorist attacks? And then if a Muslim condemns it, well, then your argument goes away. Talk Islam has yet to condemn the terrorist attacks. 25 tweets on how great Muhammad Ali was, nothing on Orlando at the point of this recording. It's not about condemning it. It is, we need Muslims. Okay, this is what you need to do. We need you to come out, not only condemn it, that's not it. We need you to take up arms, join the militaries in our country or the countries where you live to fight against Islam. Just like people petition their representatives to fight against gun control or to fight against Flint tap water. Muslims need to start electing, taking part in the political process, and pushing their representatives to fight against Sharia law, to fight against the abuses of women and children that take place right here on our own soil. They need to publicly reject and actively fight against any sect that tries to implement Sharia law. They need to publicly reject and actively fight against any government that has death for apostasy. Well, what does that do? That means Muslims, it's on you now to fight Egypt, to fight Turkey, to fight Iran, to fight Iraq, to fight Hamas. That's on you. If you really have a problem with it, we need to see, listen, bloodiest war in American history was to free the slaves, right? Because people had to say this is wrong within our own ranks. That needs to happen with Islam. They need some skin in the game. It's not just about saying, well, you condemn this terrorist attack. No, there needs to be a systemic approach from Muslims to petition, to protest, to politically and violently actively fight this small contingency of Islamic cancer spreading across the world. We need them to do that. Otherwise, it has to be nukes.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the problem. They won't, because the moment that they start fighting against their own people, they become outside of that protected group. They become infidels. They become apostates. And therefore, they can be killed by everybody else. So it's very
but that's
hard
war
for them. No, I agree. This is what they should do, but I'm telling you why they won't.
Right.
Even people that are in that kind of camp and say, yeah, you're absolutely right. We have to stop these people that are taking over our religion, like they said. They won't do it.
Did you see how
because
fast
they
in
can't
France
stand up, they'll get killed.
the protests over the drawing of Muhammad? How fast? Well, why can't you get that many Muslims in a town square? Why can't you get that many to come together fighting against a terrorist attack? You can get them to come together and fill the town freaking square because someone drew Muhammad, which we'll do later on. Bob Ross will be in and we'll do a live instructional on drawing Muhammad. But you can't fill the B ballroom at the Hyatt with enough Muslims for a terrorist attack. Let's be real here. One should be more outrageous than the other. And it's not just condemning a terror attack. They need to do what Americans and anyone else in Western civilization does to fight against radical Islam. They need to do that. They're citizens of the United States. You need to do these things. And I don't hear anyone else talking about that. It's not just saying condemn the terrorist attacks. What I am saying is we cannot do this without, if there are as many moderate Muslims as they claim to have out there, we need them to do it. They need to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to go biblical kind of on you, you judge a tree by its fruit. Sorry, guys. We appreciate your words and you're sorry for all the things that have happened here, but your fruit is telling us that you stand for it because you're not doing anything to stop it. And in a lot of cases, you're promoting it, especially as organizations and leaders around the world.
Yeah.
They're high-fiving each other behind their back saying, all right, good. We're striking a blow at the enemy. And they look at us and they go, oh, those freedoms that we hate that you have, guess what? Your politicians are now coming out and saying we need to get rid of the Second Amendment, or we need to get rid of these guns. We need to restrict freedom. We need to restrict freedom of speech.
Bring in Syrian refugees,
exactly what they want.
Let men into the little girls' room, and disarm all women. What could possibly go wrong? Gerald Morgan, at G Morgan Jr., thank you so much, brother, for being with us. We'll have to have you back soon.
Absolutely, but thanks.
Thank you very much. That was Gerald Morgan. He's a rocket scientist, neurosurgeon, and now geologist. Just got another degree. I'll notify you after the break what it is.
For breaking news on Louder with Crowder, I'm Perry Matheson. We take you now back to Orlando with Jimmy, our on-the-street reporter who has exclusive interviews with those affected from this horrendous tragedy this week. Jimmy.
Yes, Perry, thank you. I'm here with Patrick. Patrick, thank you. We're really sorry that we even have to ask you for this interview. We want to try and help best prevent this tragedy in the future through accurate reporting and aggregation of information. Is there anything that you think maybe the media hasn't accurately addressed? Was there anything there you can tell us?
Well, yeah, it was obviously horrendous. It was a tragedy, and the man came in and obviously was had some bad intentions, and he repeatedly yelled, "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet." And that sends shivers down everyone's spine.
No, Jimmy, it sounded like he said that the mass murderer yelled, "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet."
No, Perry. Your headset must not be working again.
It sounded like he said, "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet."
No, he said he's tired of all these gun manufacturers making obscene profits.
Interesting, to say the least. Well, getting to the bottom of this and breaking news Louder with Crowder will keep you abreast as this story unfolds. I'm Perry Matheson.
When it's time to party, we will party hard.
Glad to be back. Little Andrew WK for you.
Nothing wrong with that.
Have a guest, someone who has directly been vilified in the media. Not really, more so the idea of this person. He runs PatriotPawnandGun.com. Guess what you can purchase there? Guess what you can do with a site like that? Alex Joye joins us. Can you hear me, sir?
I can.
Are
Hello,
you there
Mr. Crowder?
from the store right now?
I am. I'm live in the store. We got customers at the counter. We're selling guns right now.
Is that illegal?
It is in Idaho. I don't know about the rest of the country.
Well, I just, I don't know if someone fills out a background check or something and their social security number is seen over your shoulder. Okay, so how long have you been in the business, the firearms business, Alex?
I've been in the biz for 9 years. I'm a federal firearms license holder, and I have I've got a license from the federal government that says I can legally sell guns.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because there are a few rumors, and so I wanted to get someone with direct experience. It's now Patriot. Well, we'll get PatriotPawnandGun.com. Can people purchase online?
We don't sell directly online, but they can contact us, and we can transfer firearms. We can make the sale here,
right,
and we can transfer to another federal firearms license holder in their state.
Okay, exactly. Well, I wanted to get to that because I wanted to make sure so people can go to the site or wherever it is and check it out, because there are a few logical fallacies here. Can someone purchase a firearm, you're a firearms dealer, legally from you without a background check? Does that happen?
Absolutely not. Big no-no.
Okay.
We got to run them through a very stringent process. I mean,
is it the same for all gun dealers?
It is. It is. There's this mythology out there that the anti-gun left uses that it's so easy to get a gun legally. It's not. Now, you can get a gun illegally, because we've got a porous open southern border, and you got drug cartels and gang members going back and forth with illegal guns all the time. You can go to Detroit, Chicago, LA, any place downtown and buy an illegal gun as easy as you can buy some meth or some crack cocaine.
Yes, you can, or bath salts and bite somebody's face off. Although actually, they weren't even on bath salts.
Don't dish it until you've
They had just
tried
smoked pot. People don't realize that. A few of them. They were just everyone was filing bath salts. Okay, so they can't do that in the store. Online, like you just said, you ship to another FFL.
This is the way the online works. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
First off, background check online, because they say you can buy online without a background check. Again, we're talking illegal.
Not.
No, okay.
Absolutely
go ahead.
not. What happens is, so they may order a gun online from Store A. Store A has to ship the gun properly. And again, there's a lot of rules and regulations.
Like PatriotPawnandGun.com. Let's use yours as an example. Yes. So let's say someone says, I want to get, I don't know, I want to get a Glock 19 from you, from PatriotPawnandGun.com. Okay.
Yeah. So they order from me. They go to PatriotPawnandGun.com. They call us up. We sell them a Glock 19. I have to then get from them a federal firearms license copy from the FFL agent in their city from their end. I have to ship directly to another federal firearms license holder, and then they go pick up the gun from that FFL dealer, and they have to go through the 4473 process, the strict background check, and all that to get the gun.
Right. Okay. Now I know this, but a lot of people out there who haven't purchased firearms don't know the process, and that's the beauty of the firearm issue. All it takes is someone having bought one firearm ever, and they know Hillary Clinton is lying. They know it. They go, that's not true.
Absolutely.
Okay. So people are complaining this shooter, well, why wasn't there a longer waiting period is something they talk about. Like, which firearms do have a longer waiting period, or people use the term fully automatic. Turns out the guy didn't even use an AR-15. He used, was it 6-hour MC?
It was a 6-hour. I think it was an MPX. It's basically a kind of a fancy pistol, actually, a high-capacity fancy pistol.
Okay, so there you go.
It kind of looks a little bit like an SBR, a short-barreled rifle AR.
Well, why do they say AR-15 style? Why do they always? Is it just because they want to repeat that, drill it in to make people afraid of the name? Because this isn't an AR-15.
That's the bogeyman. That's the bogeyman. And the reality is that less than 300 people are killed by a rifle per year in the United States, and of those, maybe 100 ARs a year.
Right.
So, I mean, out of a nation of 300 million people, I mean, the odds of you, drowning in your swimming pool are much greater than getting shot by an AR-15.
Sure. Okay. So,
but it's a buzzword.
Right.
It's an evil black gun.
Well, you can also get them in green. You can get them in pink. I know
that's
someone
true.
has a pink AR.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
Super sexy.
You know what? There are now gay gun clubs online. They're called like Pink Guns. Groups that are arming up and getting trained. I love it. And their ARs are pink. So,
well, hopefully they realize their enemy are not Christian gun owners, that it's still Islam because they want to throw them off the roof or go shoot up a nightclub.
Absolutely. Some of the evangelicals don't want to bake them a cake, but, Farouk.
It's comparable.
Discuss wants to shoot him or throw him off a building. But, they're comparable. Yeah,
yes.
It's an analogical equivalent.
Sally Cohn makes a convincing argument. The similarities are striking. Okay, so AR-15, I know it's not fully automatic. People out there know now.
From a Class 2 dealer. They're not fully auto. They're called semi-automatic from a Class 2 dealer like myself.
Okay, so what is required to get a fully automatic weapon? That's a Class 3 license. So again, I want people to know when they say fully automatic, what's required to get that and what class is it?
Sure. Let me show you real quick what the difference between a Class 2 and a Class 3 is.
Okay.
You'll see this switch right here, okay? There are 2 positions on a Class 2 semi-automatic. There is safe and there is fire.
Right.
Now, when you put it on the fire switch, it's just as fast as you can pull your trigger, but it's semi-auto. It's every trigger pull shoots 1 round. A full auto, like what our troops are shooting, has a happy switch. You go 1 more position that way, and then it's full auto. You tug the trigger, and it's rapidly sending
and
rounds
that is that requires a Class 3 license.
That requires a Class 3 license. It's very difficult to get a Class 3 license. Far more difficult than any other government-regulated thing known to man.
Right.
It can take 6 months to a year to get a Class 3 license. You've got to go to a Class 3 dealer. You've got to go through a stringent background check where they practically do an enema and rectal exam on you.
Yes.
Then you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait. Once
It's
you get
mandatory
approval,
when you're
then it goes
55, I
back
think,
to-
anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it would take me a half hour to explain the process, but
Sure.
it's a very stringent
Well,
process.
we don't need to explain the full process because we only have 1 minute left. But I wanted people to know. A lot of people out there just hear semi-automatic. The wordplay is important. I want people to know how hard it is to. Let me ask you this real quick, just 20 seconds. Okay. Is there any firearm law that could have prevented this?
Absolutely not. You
No.
can't prevent evil. These bad guys are going to get guns, and if they don't get a gun, they're going to get a knife. If they don't get a knife, they're going to set the place on fire. They're going to do evil. They made those guys in Boston made a bomb out of a pressure cooker and some nails and some gasoline. I mean, come on. Then you go down to a Home Depot. What do you get, a ban Home Depot?
I had a great
These
uncle
bad
who died
guys-
from a pressure cooker. But Alex, I hate to cut you off. PatriotPawnandGun.com, right?
Yes, sir. PatriotPawnandGun.com. Summit Firearms Academy. Get armed, get trained. Your government is not
Exactly.
going to protect you. You got to protect yourself.
And get trained, PatriotPawnandGun.com. But don't go asking him for machine guns because you can't do it. Alex Joye, thank you very much for educating us, sir. We'll make sure to educate people more after this. Now. Go now. Go now. Go now. And now for actual studio conversations.
Your dog is weird. I caught him earlier. He was just licking himself. Like he just could not get enough of his downstairs nether region. I don't know, it was like at least half an hour.
That's weird.
Just sitting there. It is weird. I told you your dog's weird.
No, you're weird.
What?
He's a dog. A dog licking himself is natural. You watching him for 45 minutes is not. At all. This has been Actual Studio Conversations. Glad to be back. Are we in the third hour?
Third hour.
We are in the third hour. Sorry, people listening on the stream, they're going, what do you mean third hour? Because we cut it shorter than those listening on radio. By the way, no big announcements. We're not going daily. Don't try and force our hand, and we're just stop.
It's rude
It's rude
to insist on
this
that.
show will never go daily. We do not have an exploratory committee. There are no plans in the works. Shut up. Your host, Stephen Crowder, producing with me in video studio, as always, is Not Gay Jared. Follow him at NotGayJared. So we have something for our viewers right now.
A treat.
Those listening on radio. Of course, right now with the Islam issue, people are saying, well, Muslims are not peace-hating terrorists. And of course, that's the case. They're saying Islam is not a problem, and Islam is entirely compatible with Western culture. The problem with Western culture is guns. And Muslims support freedom of speech as anyone does. And so we know that.
Mm-hmm.
We know that, for example, you can speak out against
Fact.
Islam, you can convert, you can fight against Sharia. Of course, freedom of speech. You can draw Muhammad. And so we actually found this one. You may not have seen this before.
It kind of got buried.
It kind of got buried.
Kind of like long lost.
Historically, I don't think people were on as high alert. It wasn't archived well at all. But thank God for YouTube. We have Bob Ross, your favorite public broadcaster, amazing painter. And we found this episode of The Joys of Painting, where he teaches you how to draw Muhammad. Let's do it. Hi. Welcome to Joy of Painting. I'm happy to see you here today, especially on this week, Cultural Appropriation Month, as we appreciate the wonderful culture that is the Middle East and our Muslim friends. It's always good to have friends of many different walks of life. So today we're going to be teaching you how to draw a nice picture in a landscape of Muhammad, peace be upon him, the holiest of prophets. So let's show you how to start. You got to get your paint ready. I prefer to use oils. You could use pastels. It's whatever you pick. Painting can be easy for anybody. Let's just pick a nice neutral color. And we are going to just start drawing Muhammad. A little prophet there. Well, let me grab a color. There we go. Just give him a body. A little bit of a body there. See, it doesn't have to be complex. Traditional headdress they wear in the Middle East. Let's give this man a beard. There we go. Nice beard for Muhammad. It protects your face in the sandstorms. Beard's important to have. And there we go. Give him some facial features. See little details. See how that fills out the picture? Now Muhammad, though, look at him. He looks lonely. How about we give him a wife? Let's just draw him. Little wife. Favorite one was Aisha, little 6-year-old wife. Right there. We'll put her in the hijab, not the full burqa. You can choose your favorite color for the hijab or burqa. Can be black or slate. And little 6-year-old Aisha. You know what? Let's give her a knapsack. She's about that age where she'll go to school. Aisha, Muhammad's favorite wife, was 6. 9 when he consummated. She was a good student. And a tender lover. Look at that. See, look. Very quickly we have Aisha, Muhammad. What a cute couple. But he still seems a little lonely. Let's give him a few more wives. Just a few more wives. These ones don't have to be complex. You can use black or gray. Let's give them the full burqa. There you go. And a couple more wives. Just a couple more wives to keep him company. 1, 2, 3. Of course he had more. You can draw as many as you want. Use the color you want. Muhammad liked some foliage. Let's draw some trees for him. I'm using a forest green. You could use a military green because he was a warlord. Killed lots of Christians and Jews. Didn't like him very much. There we go. Just some foliage, some trees. Let's give some there on the other side of Muhammad there. Let's get just a little bit of green. Oh, that's nice. See, Muhammad was really clear that he should never hurt the trees in a time of war. Was very concerned with the plants. Not so much with his wives, so let's give Aisha a little bit of a black eye. I think that's her next step. Muhammad, of course, did strike Aisha, but only lightly, causing her great pain. Let's put black eye there. I'm using mauve. You can use violet. You just want to make sure people see the severe beating Aisha took. You know what? Let's get a crimson red in there. Give little 6-year-old Aisha, student, lover, a fat lip. That's Muhammad's wife, who he beat. He's drawn right there, so you can see, to the left of her. And there we go, Aisha with a black eye and a fat lip. Oh, look at that picture. Out there in the desert, lonely nights. See, look what we were able to draw here. Just a couple of minutes. Painting doesn't have to be hard, especially when your inspiration is Muhammad, the holiest of prophets, who liked to beat a 6-year-old wife, didn't hurt trees, but had lots of wives, didn't like Jews. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a good week, and happy painting. That's nice. It's good to just lighten it up every now and then.
It was. I was really glad we found that.
Not political. Just teaching people how to paint.
Paint. Hobbies are good.
Getting back to the simple joys of life. Speaking of simple joys, we haven't updated this in a while. Let me give you a macro from the left. They want to import Syrian refugees from war-torn lands in record numbers. They want to send your women in with men in the restrooms and entirely disarm everyone. What could possibly go wrong there? We talk about the cost of freedom. I have this up on my screen, louderwithcrowder.com. For those of you listening terrestrially, we started compiling a refugee hit list, and then we stopped. It just got to be too long. But to give you an idea, some things where maybe being armed might have helped. Germany, Syrian refugee assaults 30-year-old woman. Germany, Syrian refugee arrested for assaulting children. In the UK, full of British school children were attacked by migrants who smashed a window and caused a child to suffer an epileptic fit. Muslims attack Germans in Germany. Gosh, my mouth is just attack 8-month pregnant old woman in Germany because she was wearing a cross. Norway, 3-year-old boy raped by multiple people at an asylum center. German Leisure Center becomes the first to ban all migrants after a schoolgirl was sexually assaulted in a public swimming pool. Of course, you have the Boston bombers. Of course, you have the Paris attacks. So, I just want to give you an idea as to what an actual threat is. If you want to talk about something consistent, let's talk about Islam. Not only the violation of life, not only terrorism, but violation of basic human rights as well. And human rights doesn't mean the right to get a gay wedding cake. It doesn't mean the right to get married anywhere you want, in any church you want, outside of a civil union from the government. I'm talking about fundamental rights like life, not being raped, being able to defend yourself. Those don't exist in many countries in Europe. So that's kind of important. So I wanted to talk something here. We're going to have Dave Rubin after the break. Have a lot of affection for Dave Rubin. I'll explain why. Because he doesn't do what's happened with a lot of other leftists. D.L. Hughley was supposed to be on the show. Then he had to cancel. To be fair, D.L. Hughley has come on before. He did say he'll do it next week. Jill Sobule, who was did the songs for Bernie Sanders, agreed to come on. She didn't come on. We've had a rash of this lately. 2 this week. A big one, Michael Woods Jr., who was on the Joe Rogan podcast, who was on there talking about the Second Amendment, wanting to remove the Second Amendment rights from many people. Joe said, well, why don't you do a debate? He said, oh, no one will do it. Sam Harris turned me down. He said, no one will debate him. No one will do this with him. And I said, okay, well, listen, I'll do it. I'd love to have a discussion with you. I think it'd be productive. I used the word discussion. He said, sure. So this is what I want to give you this because we were going to have him on the show. A lot of you were excited. And let me say this to start off with. I have an immense amount of respect for Joe Rogan. I've done his show, and I don't just say that as a hollow sort of compliment. I can tell you exactly why I respect him. I disagree with him on a whole lot. Trailblazer with not only comedy, the style that he does, but podcasting, going alternative with that, really building up a podcast from scratch. I remember when he used to do it with a webcam, really basic with Joey Diaz, because my friend John Lodgewell was on. And he created it. He went off on his own, and also has been immensely successful, starting or working with a business on it. Supplement company with his podcast. Came into the UFC, obviously one of my favorite sports, when he really wasn't being compensated all that much because he loved the sport. He's a guy who's just done what he wants to do. He lives his life independently. I truly have a lot of respect for Joe, even though I disagree with him. So I want to make sure that if Joe is out there, occasionally he might listen or watch some of this. I didn't want to hijack his show. That's why I offered my platform. I don't ever want to assume or leverage this program to try and force Joe's hand. So I said, let's do it, invited him on our program. This guy, Michael Woods Jr., accepted. Here's the image of Michael Woods Jr. saying, no, that's the private email, the image from him of the tweet. We'll get to the private email, the tweet where he said, sure, let's do a Skype call or a pre-record. Do we have that? Okay. Yes, he said, all right, we'll see what Joe says. And if it doesn't work, we can do a recorded Skype or something. My DMs are open. So let's go to the DMs. We said, hey, can we have you on this week? He said he was traveling from the coast when he got back. So we said, okay, that's fine. You let me know when. Be well. And you can see this up here. Jared will bring it up on screen. Then he went public and changed the conditions and said, new terms. I'll debate Steven Crowder when he put up some GoFundMe. And then behind the scenes told me to act professional when he had moved the goalposts. You can bring up the direct message here because I want to read it for the audience. He said, that's not a debate. What WTF do you not get? A debate is controlled moderate. It doesn't even make sense. He can't write clearly. But he basically kept changing the goalposts, and he's not coming on for a debate. And he was the one who accepted. He was the one who said no one would debate him. It seems like he just wanted to use this to leverage to get back on Joe Rogan's program. It's really hard to get liberals. We agreed. We said no time limits, no editing. We do that with people. And I'd say 7 times out of 10, they just back out. And it's been a real problem. So we tried to bring it to you. Hopefully he comes on. I don't think he has any intent of doing so. But we have Dave Rubin after the break. He's a good one. Stay tuned. Oh, there you are again. I'm glad you're enjoying the video cast or live video stream, but many of you don't know you can subscribe on iTunes or SoundCloud. Take the audio version with you on the go. There's exclusive commercials, plus it's free. As we know, you don't want to say cheap, inexpensive, you're frugal. Stay still.
Hey, Steven, what are you doing?
I'm just browsing AR-15.com.
You mean the site about the scary black rifle with the best prices, community, and information on the web?
Oh, what the hell's the difference?
AR-15.com! Kaboo! AR-15.com! Kaboo! AR-15.com! Kaboo!
You know, they just heard the 3 takes. You did 3 takes, you didn't edit it. They can hear you.
Kaboo!
Glad to be back. Guile Street Fighter theme song makes everything better.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad to have our next guest. I have to say this right off the bat before we bring him on. I have a lot of affection for him. I really like the guy. I have a soft spot in my heart for him because we disagree on a lot. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a stand-up guy. He's one of the few people I haven't spent a lot of time with whom I trust, character-wise. And he's willing to actually show up and stand in the pocket with people, even if he disagrees with them. So, again, you never want to give out hollow compliments. I'm in the business of actually describing why. You can follow him on Twitter at Rubin Report or his wonderful YouTube channel with his talk show. Dave Rubin, thanks for being with us, brother.
Crowder, first off, I love the fact that I'm coming into, was that 16-bit Street Fighter?
It was. Yeah, so it was Super Street Fighter Guile song.
I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but I knew it was 16-bit something or other, so that's beautiful to come into that. I have Sega Genesis in the other room right now. Really, I know we're always talking about politics and free speech and blah, 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 but why don't we just start one of these video game channels and we'd be freaking rolling in dough?
We'd be millionaires, but I'm a Super Nintendo guy, so we'd have to, that's the white privilege of the console wars.
You know what's funny? I can accept a lot of your radical racist positions, but it's the Super Nintendo thing that I can't get over.
It really gets his goat.
It really gets his goat.
It's like, all right, you don't like trans people. I got, all right, fine. But it's like, really? Super Nintendo over Sega Genesis?
Well, it makes sense. I mean, there are more buttons, but I guess Dave Rubin, he doesn't like as much variety with the buttons. That's why he stays with his own buttons. Dave, big week. Big week. Stop it, not gay, Jared.
Oh, and just one other thing, Crowder, before we get to the big week. Thank you for explaining to me via text how to tweet before I get on the show.
A lot of people just forget.
Huh?
A lot of people just forget. Well, I just wanted you to, so that way you have the link and you could just hit retweet. You don't have to fashion your own tweet. You should be thanking me. See, I compliment him and he's just petulant. Nothing like perpetuating the original stereotype, Dave.
Just likes to bitch.
I had to stop the basketball game for this, so I'm just...
Oh, gosh.
I'm missing it.
The basketball game in Los Angeles. I'm sure they cower in fear when Rubin shows up.
Basketball game in Los Angeles. It's the NBA Finals, man.
I thought you were playing pickup ball. Never mind. I thought I was saying. Never mind. That joke doesn't work. I didn't realize it was the NBA
try
game.
Again.
Well, okay. You two both like NBA, so that's in common. So, okay, Dave, we had a listen. I mean, I know you're not really super liberal. You're kind of moderate. You're very reasonable, but all of our liberals have dropped out, and so I said, listen, I need you to come in and pinch hit. And I think you and I slightly disagree on the gun control issue. Let me ask you this. This has happened. This has unfolded this week, okay? Mm-hmm. You're a reasonable guy. You're more moderate. You're also gay. I don't think that's any secret. I know you don't dine off of that. Was your reaction right away, we have a problem with Islam?
I always forget. Are you gay again? I always forget.
It's up in the air, depending on who you ask.
Okay.
So I say that because it's obvious this affects the gay community. And there's been a very big outcry from both the left and the right. And it seems like they're just we haven't even talked about that today because I never want to use the gay community as pawns. What was your reaction? Did you go to Islam's a problem or, oh my gosh, gun control?
All right. Well, there's a couple things here. So first off, I would always say in every case of this, whether this person had turned out to have been a white Christian or a brown Muslim or a Asian gay person or a handicapped Indian or give me a couple others, I would always blame the person who did it first. Right. The means with which they do it. Look, if I had a machine gun, what kind of? So they were saying it was an AR-15, but now I guess it's something else.
It's not, right? But an AR-15 isn't a machine gun either.
Okay, so if I had, what's the gun? Do you know offhand?
A Sig Sauer MCX. To someone like you who hasn't probably fired either, you would think they're very similar. It's a different operating system.
Okay, fair enough. So, and that is correct. I have not fired either of them. But I think this will illustrate my point even more. Right. If I had one here right now, I would not think, my God, I have that gun here. I should go into a gay club and shoot gay people, or I should go into a mosque and shoot Muslims, or I should go into a church and shoot Christian people. So it is not about the gun itself. Now, we can have a debate about some level of gun control, and is it too easy for people to get guns who shouldn't get guns and that kind of thing. But I always would blame the person who did it and the ideology that made them do it. And this is, again, I mean, this is where we've really come together and why I have now friends that I consider on the right that I'm happy to have friends. We have to talk about bad ideologies and we can't be afraid to. And there's one ideology that they hold above all of us, and it's the one that would love to have me killed, gay, atheist, Jew. And guess what? You're not doing that well either.
No, they're not very effective.
So if you guys don't want me to talk about it, I mean, I was about to curse, so I won't curse.
No, that's okay.
But you know what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly what you said. That's why I ask. Because listen, do you think the gay communities? Listen, there's a war with Islam. There's not a war with Christianity. The bathroom thing. Here's the thing. It is an entirely tenable position for a Christian or many atheists to say, okay, I think you should use the bathroom to your biological sex. We have some issues with it. That is an entirely tenable position without hate. You can argue the science of it and say they're wrong. Doesn't mean they hate somebody. It is not a tenable position to say gays need to be killed or treated as second-class citizens, as they are in every Islamic country.
Look, the simple fact is, depending on how you add up the Islamic countries, there's about 51 of them. It depends if you're talking about Muslim majority countries or countries where it's really more into the governmental level, et cetera. But in all of those countries, it's pretty horrific for gay people. It's pretty horrific. You know what I mean? Like, you can maybe be DL gay somewhere. And not only that, but then in most of these countries too, because they treat their women horribly, and the women, as Bill Maher says, the women have to wear beekeeper costumes in some of these countries. Well, if you're let's pretend you're a gay man in one of these countries, or you're a heterosexual man and you're young and you can't look at women if you're straight, and you can't look at men if you're gay. You can't act on that impulse. Well, as Bill Maher says, that's fertile ground for terror. And I think that's a great way of looking at it. If you can't get out your most natural human impulses, guess what? People like to have sex. Straight people like to have sex. Gay people like to have sex. Everyone likes to have sex. That's just one part of being human. It's a very human thing, right? And if you can't get those impulses out, and then at the same time, you're listening to imams and preachers who are demonizing gay people and, of course, demonizing Jews in Israel and all that stuff, well, guess what? It's a perfect combination for this guy who was American, who internalized his homophobia, turned it on himself, and then who did he kill? He killed gay people because his religion taught him not
exactly. Okay, we have to go to a break, and then we will bring you back after the break. I don't know what kind of 16-bit we have after this. I don't know, but hopefully David will.
Good,
hopefully. And then we'll talk about the gun control where we disagree, because people want to hear that. We need a little bit of it at least. Louder with Crowder. Stay tuned.
For breaking news on Louder with Crowder, I'm Perry Matheson. We take you again to on-the-field reporter Jimmy in Orlando in the wake of this tragedy with exclusive interviews to get to the bottom of the incident and ensure that no tragedy like this occurs again. Jimmy!
Yes, Perry, thank you. I am here with Gene. Thank you so much for taking the time. And we really want to do our job as journalists responsibly and try and mitigate this kind of a tragedy in the future. Do you think that there's any way or anything that we've missed that you heard in the incident when you were there?
Well, you know, I can just reiterate what other people were telling you, that he was yelling out Allahu Akbar, that the man was clearly unstable, and repeatedly every time he was being involved in a violent altercation, yelling out that Muhammad is the holiest of prophets, peace be upon him.
Now, Jimmy, it sounded like he kept yelling, Muhammad is the holiest of prophets, peace be upon him.
No, Perry, that's not what he said.
It really sounded like that's what he said.
No! What he said was the shooter liked McDonald's and had a piece on him. He had a piece on... A piece is a term. He's African American. It's the term they use for firearms. He had a piece on him.
Now, Jimmy, that is patent bullshit. You are full of it. You need to do your job, Jimmy.
I am doing my job. I won't let you taint this with your bigotry.
What in the holy hell? What bigotry? The man just gave you what the assailant actually said.
So what, you think just because he yells out Allahu Akbar and Muhammad is his only prophet, or peace be upon him, you think that somehow means that this is Islamically related?
Jimmy, you are a hack. You are just the pits. The absolute pits. And I'm ashamed to share airtime with you. We'll keep you abreast as this story unfolds. For Louder with Crowder, I'm Perry Matheson. Jimmy, you're a real prick.
Glad to be back. Follow this man. Watch his show, youtube.com/Rubin Report. Hey, Dave Rubin, what's going on with your show real quick before we continue?
Holy cow, Crowder. What a week. So you were one of the few people who were on the inside. You knew what was happening 3 weeks ago.
And you know I can keep a secret now.
Finally, because I have a couple other things I want to tell you.
Oh, geez.
No, so
some of them should be directed at Not Gay Jared. Some of them I can absorb.
No, so I was with Aura TV since September, which has been great. It's Larry King's digital network. They've been great to me. The fact that Larry King, the true king of talk, thought that I was someone that was worthy of bringing in has been amazing to me. But I decided over the last couple of weeks, it was just time to own my thing. I've seen what you've done. I've seen what guys like Joe Rogan have done and Adam Carolla and a couple other guys. And I was just like, my audience is there now. I know what I'm saying. The fact that I'm doing this from the left, as the left is crumbling, there's a space for me. And I wanted to try it on my own. So we were going the fan funding route as of this week. And we started on Monday. And right now, we're, I think as of a few minutes ago, we're at $18,000 a month already.
Wow.
Which is awesome. And it's just from the fans. And I'll be beholden to my fans. And I'll just keep saying what I think. And it's pretty sweet.
So Larry King's still alive. That's cool.
Larry's alive.
Another news.
And well, hold on. Where can people go if they want to do this? Because honestly, people, if you're listening, Rubin Report, you can just even give him a couple bucks a month. I highly recommend it. The guy does good stuff. He comes in the show. He's had me on his show, even though a lot of his audience at the time hated me. Where can people go?
Well, first off, when we get you back next time in LA, and by the way, not only that, you've also been to the studio. I think you're the only one who's been to my studio. That was a DL operation right there.
Very cool.
But you can go to RubinReport.com/donate or Patreon.com/RubinReport and all the stuff's there. And you get all kinds of, we do one-on-one Skypes and all kinds of fun stuff if you want to jump in on that.
Sure.
And it's cool. I'm grabbing a hold of my operation, which is what you've done. And I really think that's the future of this whole thing. But real quick, on Larry King, Larry not only has been great to me, but now I'm invited to his morning breakfast. He has his old crew of guys. They do breakfast 5 days a week, and they talk sports and they talk politics and they fight and they argue and they tell jokes. And I went a couple times last week.
It's just great. It's like imagine.
Do they roll a casket with Larry wherever he goes as a preemptive measure?
Come on. He is a great man. You know what? Imagine if me, you, Milo,
Dave Rubin,
the whole crew,
a Jew, correct?
Correct.
That's how his interviews go. I watched him interview Andrew WK. He said, "Andrew WK, there's a rumor that you're not real." And that was it. He didn't even ask a question.
That's it. But imagine us for 30 years. Imagine us in 50 years doing what we're doing right now, but having breakfast while we're doing it.
No, he's tried
it's so
to evolve.
Cool being in his crew. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what I want to get to, we said we might have some disagreements on gun control.
Sure.
Real quick, because we don't have a ton of time. What is your position on this? You're saying keeping the guns out of hands of people. So I just want to hear your position. If you can surmise it in like 30, 45 seconds, we can get down the trail of deconstructing.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say keeping guns out of the hands of people. I said there are certain people. Yeah, there are certain people who shouldn't have guns. Everyone knows that. If you're on the terrorist watch list, you shouldn't have a gun. I mean, that's, I'm pretty sure you agree with me on that?
No.
You don't agree with me. If you're on the terrorist watch list, you should have a gun.
Okay, what about the no-fly list? Are you including that? Because people use them interchangeably as well.
Right. So I know there's a difference between the terrorist watch list and the no-fly list. So without getting...
But not a huge difference. You can be put on, and there's no appeal, there's no due process, and there's no way to get off. And remember, Napolitano said that right-wing Christians should be flagged as domestic terrorists. Anyone can be put on. Anyone has been put on without due process. And this guy wasn't on it. So
you don't even know sometimes till you're boarding a flight.
Yeah, the flight list, but even the terror list, you don't even know.
Well, not only was this guy not on it, but he was on other FBI watch lists, and they totally dropped the ball on it. So I'm not going to come in here and defend the government, right?
No, but they took him off.
Right, but that's proving my point that these guys are pretty inept anyway. So
right, but that's my point. So my point is, you can't use a terror watch list or no fly list. It doesn't mean anything.
So I would say this. Look, forgetting the nitty gritty, which we can't solve in 30 seconds, I would say that if your issue is guns, then you at the very least have to have an honest discussion about Islamism. But if the left won't have an honest discussion about Islamism, then guess what? You're never going to have the discussion about guns. There's a legitimate debate, an honest debate to have about guns. And I probably am somewhere more to the left than you on that. I think there's some control that would make sense. But I'm absolutely for the Second Amendment, and I believe people have the right to bear arms.
Right.
But that being said, if you just never let people have the honest discussion about a doctrine that literally says kill you as the non-believer and kill the gays and subjugate women and all of that stuff, if you're not even allowed to talk about that, then you can't tell those people to take away their guns. So I understand your people like you. I understand
we agree on that, and I need to get to some of the disagreement because you are filling in for a coward who refused to come on the show. So we need someone to. So I need to do this. I'm not trying to be mean, but every leftist drops out, and you're far more reasonable. But let's just pretend you're not. So the terror watch list and no fly list doesn't mean anything, right? Let me ask you this. This is genuine, okay? Because I genuinely think that people in Los Angeles. I was just on the phone with Google, with people over there in Google at the executive offices. And I asked her, I said, do you have a gun? She said, no. I said, have you ever known anyone who's purchased a firearm? She said, no, I've never known anyone who's needed one. And that is such a bias that people don't understand. They can't possibly know. So I don't say this to say you're stupid, but I do think that most people in California, particularly in the big cities, are incredibly ignorant when it comes to firearms. And they need to be educated. And that's why I say, matter of fact, I'm buying you a gun. I'm buying you a gun, Dave Rubin. I'm going to send it to you so you can see what the process is like. Because people who've never purchased a firearm, yes, I will do it. People who've never purchased a firearm, you're going to have to go through so much paperwork, you'll never believe again that people are just buying guns willy-nilly. Let me ask you this.
I like the idea of you buying a gun, but the paperwork, do I have to do the paperwork or do you
That's
do the
the point. And we'll have you videotape it because these people are going out acting like there's no paperwork, no background check. When I say semi-automatic
paperwork right now.
Okay, but when I say semi-automatic, you're Jewish. You should love paperwork. You get into the legal stuff all the time. When I say semi-automatic, what do you think? What does that mean?
So listen, I'm not a gun aficionado. So this is
I don't say it to make you sound stupid. It'd be like asking me what a specific carburetor is. I wouldn't know, right?
Yeah, right. So when someone says semi-automatic to me, my sense is that with a semi-automatic, you can press once and you're going to get a certain amount of rounds out. And that is basically a semi-automatic.
Only one. Ever.
One round.
One round, one trigger pull, one round. That's every gun outside of bolt action or pump action.
Right.
So I say that because, like I said, a certain amount of rounds. So if I'm not at all trying to insult you, so don't think this is an ambush. But you say a certain amount of rounds. You probably thought, right, when I say semi-automatic, maybe burst fire? Not a machine gun.
Yeah.
That's not legal unless you have a specific license. That's a lot of paperwork and very expensive. So here's my point.
Huge waiting list time.
Huge waiting list time. I understand that most people are like you. They don't fully know what it is. But the second you've owned a firearm, you know what a semi-automatic is. So that's where I ask you, I challenge leftists, if when you hear Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, whoever it is, using that as a term to conflate the issues, they obviously know better, but they're deliberately using it to mislead Americans into thinking what you thought until we had this conversation.
Well, so that's also why people come from this from different schools. So the world that I live in, what I've been trying to do is talk about ideas. I've been trying to talk about ideology. I've been trying to talk about means that make people do things.
Right.
So if we were to get into any of that, if we could get into any of that, you're not going to get me on any of that. But so I don't focus on that.
No, I'm not trying to get you, but I'm
No.
But it's politicians who are misleading, and it's very easy to mislead people in LA or New York, not so much the rest of the country. And that's why it creates this mindset of civil war, and they treat people like these dumb bumpkins, whereas the fact is, when it comes to firearms, there are people who know anything and people who know nothing. And my issue is Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, they're surrounded by semi-automatics. You have to attribute it to collusion. And so it's the same thing with the terror list or no fly. It doesn't mean anything. You can be put on it. You could be put on the terror list or no fly list if Donald Trump wins and he doesn't like you for speaking out in him.
No, I
just
get
for coming
it.
on the show.
And
just for coming on the show. He didn't like me either.
Trust me, I'm sure he wouldn't be thrilled with my show either. But my bigger point was, I know you're not trying to get me on that. I'm not worried about that. My bigger point was that people like us who are in the public space, we come at this from different philosophical parts. So you come at it more of, you want to protect the Second Amendment in its sort of purest form, and I'm coming more at the philosophical side of some of the ideological stuff. But that's why these conversations have to happen.
Yes.
And look,
but here's what I'm saying.
I
bet
all the time,
if you
I
had
have a lot to learn about things.
Yes, I bet. Here's the one thing. I bet if you had a firearm, if you'd ever purchased a firearm, or if you knew what an AR-15 was or went and fired it, you would never have the same opinion on the Second Amendment again. I mean, philosophically, you wouldn't. If you understood what these firearms are. That's why I say it. That's why it's so important.
You come here and do the paperwork. Will you do the paperwork? I just hate paperwork.
No, you have. That's the whole point. I'm starting a gift a gun, #gift-a-gun, because anyone who's ever purchased a firearm can call BS when people are out there spouting these talking points. You will never believe it again that someone is legally purchasing a firearm or an automatic weapon without a background check. Once you've ever purchased a firearm, you'll never believe it again. That's why I say it's not to get you. It is such a pivotal moment in someone's view on the Second Amendment. And an AR-15 is a glorified high-pressure .22 round. It's less powerful than hunting rifles that I have here in this house. So, like you've talked about, education, though, specifically on guns, the technicalities matter because people think of them as these scary things and don't know what they are, and they're deliberately being misled.
Can I get that gun that Jesse Ventura had in Predator? Do you have that?
I would like that firearm as well. That's what do you call it, a minigun?
I don't remember that. I didn't see that one.
And the gun.
That thing was awesome. I don't think that thing was real. I interviewed him once, and he said it was like actually being held by somebody off camera because it wasn't even like a real thing.
No. It's not practical. Well, like the term assault weapon doesn't mean anything, right? I've used this as an example. This is I've talked about this. It's not loaded. This is illegal. I don't know if it's illegal in California, but that is a basic revolver, right? Well, that has over 10 rounds. That's beyond capacity. That's an assault weapon. So people need to understand that. That is an assault weapon. You can have a basic hunting rifle that's an assault weapon. You can have an AR-15 or a gun that this guy used, depending on modification, that isn't. And so I really do think information on what these firearms are is important because it's one of those issues, right? Probably like the freedom of speech issue. Once you speak on campus, you see that it's real. Once somebody fires a firearm or purchases one, their opinion changes forever. They're never pro-gun control. It doesn't happen.
Right, and actually, that's why the truth of what we're talking about when you talk about Orlando is right smack in between of what we're talking about. So you're laying out serious and understandable cases about guns and all that, and then what I'm talking about is the ideology that would allow people to pick up one of those things and say, I'm going to murder innocent people. And it's those two things together. So, of course, the hysterics on both sides are always going to say, if you want to hide the truth about Islamism, you'll say it's about guns. If you want to hide the truth about guns, you'll say it's about Islamism, and all that. But the truth is it's right in the middle. And I know that for whatever weapons you have in your house right now, I'm pretty sure that Steven Crowder's not going out to shoot innocent people tonight because as much as people may say you're a racist, bigot, blah, 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 that actually hate isn't in your heart, even though you want people to think that it is.
Oh, you better be careful, sir. I will. If you come meet me in Texas territory, you are in for a rude awakening. When I get with my boys and we throw back some Bud Lights in the pickup truck, you don't want to be around me.
Come on, when we met on the street the other day, that you gave me a hug, you wouldn't let go. It was very uncomfortable.
Told you this guy's gay.
He must have smelled really good. I bet he smells good.
He's a lovely guy. And the first thing he said, he goes, "I knew you were a big guy. I didn't realize you're." People always say that. I think it's because they have a relatively small head compared to most broadcasters.
You're large. You're very large.
I'm large and in charge, and I would disagree. I don't think the truth here is in the middle. I think you would agree the truth here is more toward the right, where it is an Islamic problem, and we need to acknowledge it. The ideology is more important. But yeah, if we need to get you either a firearm or get you to a range, we'll make a video, because I think that is one of the issues. It saves lives. Good example, kids, when they were put in a room alone with a gun, what they never tell you is that the 20 kids they were playing them with putting in the mouth, the 2 kids who were entirely responsible, it was the only 2 kids who were trained with guns. It changes the way you approach. I'm sorry, we're going to a break. Mr. Rubin, we have to let you go. Rubin, youtube.com/Rubin Report.
Done.
Oh, here you go. Sega Genesis now. We got the Sonic song.
Yeah.
Oh,
just
Sonic,
for you.
there you go. Nice. Oh, there's Sonic.
And we have to go. I didn't hug Dave Rubin. That never happened. That's a lie. Louder with Crowder. Stay tuned.
You hug.
Stop it. I'm hungry. Glad to be back. Got caught in the riptide.
There are monsters in these here parts. See,
there are monsters around these parts. They're not very nice around these parts here with riptides. Dave Rubin, at Dave Rubin. Go give the guy some dough. Good for him. Up to $18,000 a month in fan funding. Man,
yeah.
The world has changed. He is more honest than Walter Cronkite or Dan Rather or Larry King. I know he likes Larry King.
Twice the stud.
Larry King's full of crap, man. I don't like Larry King. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but man, have you ever seen his interviews lately?
I'm not. I tend to avoid most
Like he'll interview Jenna
interviews.
Marbles. She's on YouTube. He goes, "So, Jenna, you're a YouTube star." Yes. What's that like? That's his actual interview. So, Andrew WK. Some people say you are not real. What else? He goes, "Why the white?" Well, you know, I this is the way I dress, and I feel, What kind of shirt are you wearing? And I know Andrew WK wears Fruit of the Loom because that was what fascinated Larry King. Mm-hmm. Do you ever wear different pants? Larry, you're concerning us. Big week, man, busy week. I feel like it was so tight. We didn't get to fit everything in. There were a lot of things I wanted to talk about.
That's what she said, and that was the problem for lots of individuals.
Stop it.
I'm ashamed.
You should feel great shame. These are nice people, this audience here.
It depends where they're listening. I don't believe that about everybody.
Gosh, Islam, though, talk about a religion that is just cursed.
Yeah.
Mecca? Can you imagine that? Mecca, how many, just stampedes that have happened. The crane that happened.
The crane, remember the lightning. Is that, if I remember right, there was a cool video. I won't say cool because people died.
Holy crap.
But
Shut
the lightning
up.
was cool.
For the rest of all time, with this.
It was a crazy video. Stuff happened. Back to you, Steven.
No, seriously. First off, it's like you have the tramplings. Then the crane that's your holy site in Mecca. Could you imagine going to Jesus's tomb and there's a Caterpillar tractor?
No.
Run down where's
That'd
the
be terrible.
Where was the empty tomb found? Well, if you make a left at the John Deere tractor.
It's like, you go to the zoo and your favorite part's under construction. It's a huge bummer. It's really distracting. It ruins the mood. It's not good for anybody.
But it is a rough religion. And, man, I will tell you this. I openly say this. And I think there are plenty of Muslims out there, of course, who are decent people. But listen, they are apostates in the general history of Islam. And I think Islam is evil. I will say this. I've said it before. Islam is the great evil of our time. By the way, if you want me to actually try and set up sending a firearm to Dave Rubin, tweet me at @SCrowder. I wonder how we can do that. I think you can do it. You can order to California to an FFL. It's just really hard process.
It is a hard process.
You can't carry, and it's hard to have it in your house. But I really do think that is an issue. #gift a gun. The more people who have firearms, the more people who go through the paperwork, and of course, if you gift it, get them some kind of a access to a course, or if you send them to a respectable FFL dealer, they almost always advise a safety course. You did one.
Yeah, if they don't offer them there, they have contacts for people who offer courses.
Yeah, I did one resources as well, and it really is
never stop training. Never stop.
Well, you never stop training, and it's fun to train with a firearm.
It is fun.
Someone today said, name me one thing about firearms that is good for society. Here's the thing, the right to firearms isn't necessarily about society, it's about individual rights. And that's one thing people do a lot. They conflate individual God-given human rights with society. The thing about the Second Amendment, and people will tell you about the Constitution, this is important because I wanted to go back to the sort of rant earlier that people seem to react to. Maybe we'll archive that as its own video. People say, well, the Constitution was written by white racists and or slavery. Well, here's what's so crazy about that. Slavery was the law of the land, and it continued, and they put in inalienable rights, and that was what was found to be unconstitutional. They said you can't have rights given to them by God. This would have never come to fruition with atheists. It doesn't mean there aren't good atheists, but this is reality as far as history. They said you can't have inalienable rights because that means the rights are given to them by God, not by government. We're not giving them these rights. And we can't have that and then say that we're going to take away rights from black people. That's the justification for ending slavery. That language, inalienable rights. You need to understand that. So it was the law of the land. They found that it wasn't reconcilable with the Constitution. Now, and it wasn't included, it was omitted because it was the law of the land. Here's the difference with the Second Amendment, and it was fixed. The Second Amendment, the law of the land, was citizens didn't get guns. From the old world, citizens were not allowed to have the capabilities to fight off a government. That was the law of the land, and they expressly went out of their way to say, we are changing the way we do this. Took them a while with slavery, still before most other countries, but the Second Amendment was right away. Why? Because they just fought off a tyrannical government. They knew they couldn't do it without it. And George Washington, for people just love to throw it around. Listen, I'm not the history buff, but I've read quite a bit on the Founding Fathers. George Washington is one of the very, very few people in history. And I mean of the best presidents, of the best world leaders throughout any empire or great nation who walked away and said, I don't want this power. And people were saying, you need to be, they loved him. George Washington probably could have been president till the day he died. He said, no, too much power for one man. Can't do it. That is incredibly noble. And these are people who said, nope, too much power. If you look at these founding fathers, they pushed away the power that people, because that's human nature. They want to give certain people power. Give unto us a king. And they said, no. They said, and also, let's make sure that all of you have the ability to fight off a king. So it is very different. People will try and tell you, well, the Constitution is dated. It was written by racist white men, as Samantha Bee, who uses Salon or Slate as sources unironically. The Second Amendment, when taken literally, is very, very clear. When you give it more context, it's even more clear. Let's contrast that with what I believe to be the great evil of our time, Islam. When taken literally, kill them wherever they lie. When taken literally, beat your wife. When taken literally, kill all Christians and Jews. It's really bad. When taken more contextually and you understand abrogation in Muhammad's later work superseding the earlier work, it gets increasingly violent. When taken more contextually, the Quran gets worse. So again, with the Second Amendment and Quran, the literal interpretation seems really clear, and the context only adds to that. So get the context. Do your research. Read the Quran, read the Constitution. Talk to you next week.